Broadcasting live from global headquarters at RP Enterprises in Greenwood, Missouri.
Stand by on this frequency.
After 22 years of entertaining FM radio listeners across the U.S., this man is the owner and executive producer of the award-winning Heartland Waterfowl on Sportsman's Channel, CEO and founder of Dumar Chemical Solutions, and the man behind the mic of Papa Ron Radio voiceovers and production. He's the man, the myth, the legend, a global icon, future Nobel Prize winner, and of course he paid me to say all this.
Really?
Literally. Welcome to the Papa Ron Podcast. Here's your host, Ronnie Phillips. Ronnie Phillips.
All right, we're back, and it is now episode 15. It's episode 15 of the Papa Ron Podcast, and I want to thank again, as I do every time I start this podcast, thank you, those who loyally come back each week to watch the podcast, reach out to me with your sentiments. You make comments on the post if you would, and you're enjoying this podcast, just help me spread the word. And you can do that by following content about the Papa Ron Podcast on Facebook, Instagram, and TikTok. Speaking of my boy, Johnny Barnes, how are you, pal?
I am fantastic.
John Barnes has been a friend of mine for roughly, I'm going to say 20 years. Does that sound about right?
Sounds about right.
So
I came to Kansas City in 2001.
Okay.
And met you not long after that, maybe a couple years after that.
So, yeah, let's go back on that. So, obviously, I worked in radio for a long time at Q104. John Barnes befriended my boss, Mike Kennedy, and then
I think maybe the legend befriended me. I'm not sure how that all happened, but
okay, technicalities.
But he was and is still a great friend, a brother to me.
Sure. And so you would start coming to the shows, and you love live music. You absolutely love country music. You love live music.
I love all kinds of music. I love live music, but the real thing was I wanted to be you. I wanted to be on the air, man. Yeah. I wanted to be. That was my goal. Was
that really the goal? I mean, you had a big time job working for Pepsi. You didn't.
But way earlier than that, right? So go all the way back to when I'm in high school, 16 years old. Mm-hmm. I'm living in Phoenix, Arizona. The disco craze kind of hit big, right?
Okay.
And at 16, I started on my own DJ. I started a DJ business back when it used to be bands did high school dances and everything. Everybody hired a band.
Yeah.
And then they started hiring DJs. I said I could do this. I had lots of music anyway. So I started a DJ company when I was 16.
And mobile DJ
mobile
service,
DJ,
right?
yeah. I mean, I did high school dances, wedding reception. I was 16 years old. I was a sophomore in high school. My best friend, who ended up being the best man at my wedding, Greg, didn't care at all about music, but he was an entrepreneurial mind. He just wanted to make money.
Yeah.
And then we recruited a third guy, Brian, because he was the only guy who knew how to hook all the stuff up. And most importantly, his dad had a van. We had something to haul the shit around him. So I wanted to be a DJ, man. I did high school dances, wedding receptions, all that kind of stuff. And then I went to broadcasting school. You might not have known that.
I did know that, actually. I did. And then you worked at a radio station shortly out of college, didn't you?
No. I didn't go to college until much later. I went to broadcasting school. I went to college first, and then I dropped out, went to broadcasting school, and didn't actually finish that either because, met a girl. I met a girl.
Lori screwed it all up.
No.
I'm joking.
I met an angel. And,
yes, you did.
But and I also knew that back then, I met a girl and we got married. We'll talk about that in a second. But, being on the air was not good for a 19-year-old married guy or a 20-year-old married guy because you lived in a U-Haul trailer, man. It was like you could move town to town to town to town and you never make any money. I wasn't making any money anyway, but so my life just took a different route.
Sure. But you did work at a radio. I could have swore that maybe you were doing sales at a radio station at one time.
I did. I went down. I walked. There was a AM station in Latonia, Kentucky. It was the Cincinnati, Ohio area. And WCLU, I think it was called. I just knocked on the door one day, and this guy named Irv Schwartz, the owner of the station, came out, and I said, "Hey, man, I want to be on the air." But I was 18 or something, and he said, I might put you on the air, man, but first you got to go out and sell some air." So I tried to do that, and that didn't work very well. Not because I wasn't a good salesman. It was just we didn't have. I mean, it was behind a big strip mall, and like this, the signal was like when the parking lights went on, it went off.
Yeah.
You know, it was weak. So
what made you want to be at 16 a radio guy? I mean, was it?
I wanted to be a
Wolfman?
I wanted to be a radio guy. I wanted to be a radio guy. I loved music.
Okay.
I wanted to spin tunes.
But I guess where I'm getting at is that there wasn't a radio personality like Wolfman.
Nope.
He was like, because you talked about the disco craze. I mean, although he was kind of a rock.
Casey Kasem.
Okay.
Keep your feet on the ground and keep reaching for the stars.
There you go. So that's where I was trying to go, was to see if there was some sort of radio personality out there that just kind of inspired you to be like, I want to be that guy.
No, not really. I just wanted to be on the air.
Gotcha.
I don't know why. I loved talking, I guess.
I enjoyed it. I did it for 22 years and you know, the radio has changed a lot.
Craziness.
Man.
It's bad. It's not changing for good, but that's a different story.
I think you're right. I agree with that.
But
I'm old school too, you know.
Well, I mean, you know, if I get in my car, I don't have to listen to whatever station. Well, in the morning, if I'm in Kansas City, I listen to my buddy Zeke in the morning. But you don't have. If I want to hear music, I don't have to listen to commercials. The only reason I tune in, or anybody tunes in, is because of a local personality.
That's
because you have to get connected. I met Ronnie Phillips.
Yeah,
I know. I know Zeke Montana. I knew Mike Kennedy.
Yeah.
I listened because they might mention my name, or I knew Jillian.
Mm-hmm.
And now the big radio companies, they don't care. They don't think that's important. But it's going to die.
It's what killed my desire to stay in it, Johnny.
Yeah.
DJ Johnny Barnes, as we finally gave him the name of that, because after he became friends with Mike Kennedy, before you knew it, he was filling in for Zeke Montana when he would go on vacation. So
that's the closest I ever got to being on the air personality.
Did you? Well, it's not like it only happened once. I mean, you got to do it a handful of times. Is that something that you kind of had to be, kind of, hey, Mike, wink, wink, nudge, nudge, like this has been a dream of mine. If there's ever an opportunity, I'd love to slip in.
I don't know. I'm sure, over Rudy's Day or something, I might have mentioned that, but
so for those who are listening and don't understand, Rudy's is a popular place where these guys go and have drinks for lunch.
So we went to have lunch, and then sometimes it lasted longer, but it might have come up that way or something. I don't know, but he said, hey, one day come into the studio. And Zeke's not going to be there. Come on in and fill in. And so then every time Zeke would go, I would like cheer for Zeke to go on vacation. And I was like, Zeke, be sick tomorrow.
So did we all, actually.
Well, then if Mike was gone, Zeke would move over.
Yep.
To Mike's, fly the plane.
Yep.
And I'd still take the Zeke spot, and Jillian, of course, did the traffic and all her awesome talent.
Yep.
And I'd try to be the funny guy and whatever, and do the crazy joke of the day or whatever. Loved it. I mean, I had a full-time job.
Sure. A job, obviously, that gave you the flexibility to, you show up when you're ready to show up.
Yeah, I think by the time that happened, I had left Pepsi.
Oh, really?
I think so. I left Pepsi in 2011 and went to work for one of my customers. And I think by then I was with the other company, maybe.
Gotcha.
And so I was flexible enough to do it. It was awesome. I had a blast.
It was cool, man. We always had a great time.
He would just treat me like I was part of the Q team.
You were. You were like family.
Thursday night. I went to every Thursday night, Hot Country Night.
Yep. This is why this right here, even though I've not seen you in
5 years.
At least 5 years. I think I played in a Q104 golf tournament and ran into you maybe 5 years ago.
Maybe.
And that was the last time.
Yeah.
But it's still like sitting here and doing this, and like when we talked on the phone about doing this and just catching up, and we talked for a long time, it was like picking up right where we left off. It's just like family. It's cool.
Yeah, it's cool.
So you did reach out. Let's dive into it.
Yeah.
You reached out, and because you had been listening to a couple of the podcasts, and in particular, we have a mutual friend with Travis Marvin, and you listened to that podcast. So when you saw his name pop up, I'm guessing that sparked the interest to want to listen a little bit further in depth. And then so from there, you were inspired to want to reach out and do a podcast together, which I was totally good with, because I know your character and I know that you've even challenged me. You've challenged me in private. You've challenged me on social media in front of everybody. Like, hey, Ronnie, try being nice. Like, why are you being, why you keep talking politics all the time? And I was bad about it. I was really bad about it, but we'll get into that later.
We'll get into it later, man. I'm happy to get into it too.
But you've always subscribed to this ultra, I don't know how you've just been able to manifest within yourself this just glowing personality that just oozes positivity nonstop. And you say, which I'm going to challenge you on this, but you say you've never had a bad day in your life.
Never had a bad day.
How is that possible?
So listen,
your dad died. You were very close to your dad. You're telling me that wasn't a bad day.
Here's the difference.
Okay.
I say I've never had a bad day. I've had difficult days. There's a difference. I every day I get, and my birthday's coming up, every day I get, I am grateful for and thankful for it. I start the day saying, I know I'm just happy to have another great day.
Yeah.
So I've never had a bad day.
Okay.
I've had some difficult days. I've had, family being sick, and Lori and I had 4 fantastic parents. They're all gone. But proof that I could spin anything positive. The only thing positive about losing all 4 of your parents is I don't have to go through it one more time.
Yeah.
And it's so hard.
So it's all about perception.
I'd bring them all back. I'd if I have any of one of them back for a day, that'd be great. But I'm glad I don't have to go through that again. But yeah, it's a matter of, and then I've kind of picked up on like a really good friend is kind of a brother to me too. His name's Brian Beaver, and I think you know Brian. And Brian had a really, really great friend, probably his best friend, a guy by the name of Keith Maddox. And Keith Maddox he passed away unfortunately, but he owned American Hat. His wife still owns American Hat. They make cowboy hats, the best cowboy hat in the country. Make them in Bowie, Texas. If you don't have one, you should get one.
Okay.
You should wear one when you're out there.
I don't know that I'm going to look good in a cowboy hat, but if you say,
anyway,
all right.
Keith Maddox always said, he always, you think I'm positive? This guy, when this guy walked into the room, I mean, the lights got brighter. I mean, he was the most charismatic, most positive person I've ever met. Mm-hmm. He always said, I've never had a bad day. He would say this, I've never had a bad day. He said, I had a bad 15 minutes once. Whew, I don't ever want to do that again. And that was his thing. That's the way he approached life. And I picked up on that and said, hey, I've never had a bad day. I've had difficult days, but I've never had a bad day.
So it's just all about just your frame of mind and perception and perspective. Actually, perspective is the word I'm looking for.
It might be that.
Yeah.
It might be that. I've never.
I mean, Johnny, go back. Like those struggles I remember you telling me stories all the time about when you and Lori got together and you weren't making any money and you were trying to, find your way, and you did you had some tough times in life.
I went through tough times. In my 30s, you probably don't know this story, man. I'm the only person you're ever going to meet, most likely, that doesn't have an esophagus. You did tell me that story at Whiskey Tango. Now I was going to bring that up, but you beat me to it. So there's that story. And I could have died. I had cancer. Yeah. I had cancer. I could have died. But maybe that just helped, I lived. And so I'm blessed. But you've not always had this mentality. You just said you always have. I think it's my mom. Ronnie, I remember my mom when I was a little kid. I mean, I remember, mom comes in, shakes you, try to wake you up or go to school or whatever, and I just had the best mom. She really didn't have any real reason to be positive. She had a good life. And my dad, they were married till they passed, but they never, I grew up in a family with no money. They lived paycheck to paycheck till they died, and had loans to bridge the gap between the paycheck to paycheck. Sure. But probably when I was a kid, I didn't realize how poor I was. But my mom would come in to wake me up, and she'd say, I'd be not wanting to get up. She'd say, Johnny, before you get up, before your feet hit the floor, you got to make a decision. Are you going to be positive today, or are you going to be negative today? Really? And she said, you do whatever you want. It's your decision to make. And as she's walking out of the room, she would just say, I'm just here to suggest to you that life would be a lot better for you if you choose to be positive. She just would not let me have a negative thought. My dad, on the other hand, he could be negative sometimes, but he was a super awesome guy too. But I think it came from my mom, and then I just kind of refused to think negative. I just don't let myself do it. And I always say to people, I'm like, hey, think about if your attitude, if you could choose, if it's a choice, right? You could be happy or you could be sad. Yeah. Would you ever choose sad? You would never choose sad on purpose. Not at all. Right? You're always going to choose happy. So just choose happy. Right. It's not that hard. Just choose happy. Even when it's hard. I get it. It's hard. People go through hard times, Yeah, that's where I got to put down my foot there on that one, because that's when faith comes in, man. That's when faith comes in, and there's sometimes, there's there is a thing called mental illness. And, yes, there is. And we can talk about that. And I know you subscribe to that, but there are some times when people get into a rut and into a depression and to a sadness.
and they don't know how to pull themselves out of it. So
Okay,
it's not as simple as just waking up and saying, today I'm going to choose to be positive.
I agree. And I don't mean to make light of that either, because you know I'm a lot of what I do in my life today is around trying to help people with and raise money and work on and programs and charities that are focused on mental health. And I realize what a crisis it is, and it's getting way worse. And I'm sure we'll get into that in a little bit. But I try my best. I don't mean to make light of it. I understand, but I guess I'm just blessed. I just do the best. And listen, nobody can be positive 100% of the time. It's physically impossible. So I've had my negative moments. Yeah. And even in business, right? Like when I was running Pepsi in Kansas City and in Kansas and Missouri, man, there's things that happen in business, and and you have, if you're a leader of people, this is an important point. Anybody who has people that work for them or work with them, there's a difference between manager and leader. There's a big difference. But if you're a leader of people, the first thing you give up when you get that leadership role is you can never, ever, ever be negative in front of your people, ever. That's just a cancer, and it will ruin your organization. Yeah. But nobody can be positive 100% of the time, so I needed a place to vent, and guess who let me vent? That was where Lori came in. Yeah. And every time I got promoted, every job I ever got, I'd come home and I'd say, man, Lori, babe, I bit off way more than I could chew this time. I am over my head. There is no way I could do this job. And she would kick my ass and say, you're going to be fine, and I always was.
So
you could be negative every once in a while.
When you were talking about Brian Beaver's friend, who was the positive one, that's not where that started. This started way before then. You just found a line. You just found that line as far as from him. I've never had a bad day. That came from Keith. I want to give, God love him, man. He was. I didn't get to know him as well as Brian did, but I got to know and spend time with him and his wife and his daughters, and he was just an awesome, inspirational guy. So when you reached out, you talked about there was a lot of things that you felt like that would fit well with the kind of podcast that I do. And my podcast obviously is, pretty much whatever I'm passionate about, but because I openly came out in episode 1 about my struggle in the last 2 years with internalizing a dark emotion that I couldn't control, that I felt like I needed to use this as an outlet to, first of all, being medicine for myself, to challenge myself to be open about this thing that I was struggling with, because it was the internalizing that was, being destructive and causing the panic attacks and things. Yeah. What I wished I could say that I premeditated was that I was doing this podcast to help others. And the truth is that it wasn't, but I found out in the process of doing it that I am helping others.
That's great. That's
and
awesome.
So I think that because you have some things that you're doing with mental health and some organizations that you're working with, and then some of the experiences that you've had in life with working in management, and what you're doing with this initiative on your TikTok, which is all of these things that we're covering. I'm kind of just giving the listeners or those who are watching on Spotify or YouTube just a quick overview of some of the things that we're going to bring up here along the way. Speaking of TikTok, if you have the ability, I wish you, if you are on TikTok, follow him, Barnsey, at Barnsey KC, and that's Barnsey S-E-Y, Barn S-E-Y KC. Follow him on TikTok, because your initiative there is to promote niceness, and we're going to get into that a little bit, but let's transition and go back just a little bit. You mentioned your birthday. Your birthday is coming up here in a few days. Yeah. You're going to be turning the big 60, and then 60. Shortly after that, you're going to be celebrating your 40th wedding anniversary with Miss Lori.
Yeah, man. 45 days after my birthday, we'll celebrate our 40th anniversary, and as all of my friends know, if you could be a room of my friends, and I would say, man, where would John Barnes be without Lori Barnes? Yeah. And without any hesitation, every one of them would say, living under a park bench. And when I turned 50, one of my friends gave me a T-shirt that said, God bless Lori Barnes. Without her, you'd be under a park bench. And I absolutely believe that's true.
She is a
I
saint,
absolutely believe that's true.
An angel.
She is, if you got daughters, so
I have a daughter,
Reagan. So when you get to be the father of the bride someday, I'll give you a heads up. Fast forward, it's one of the greatest days of your life, but there's a good and a bad. The bad news is they give you the bill. And that can hurt worse than college if you don't do it right. But but the good news is they give you the microphone. And you're going to be really great at that because you're good at a microphone. But at my youngest daughter, Katie's wedding, I told this story I told many times about my wife Lori, and it's kind of an interesting story how I met Lori. If you want me to
Sure.
real fast,
Go for it.
I worked at a grocery store. She worked at a competing. I didn't know her. There was a competing.
Is this going back to high school?
Yeah, we're in high school.
Okay.
But we didn't go to the same high school.
Okay.
We did not go to the same high school. I went to high school in Phoenix, Arizona until my junior year in high school.
Wow.
In the summer between my junior year and senior year in high school, my family moved back to Florence, Kentucky, which is a suburb of Cincinnati. So basically Cincinnati. So I only went half of my senior year in high school. It's a different story but I had enough credits to get out. But anyway, I worked at a grocery store. There's a competing grocery store down the street, and we would challenge each other to softball games, football games, and stuff like that. Oh, cool. And so actually, Lori's brother worked at the store I worked at. And so we were playing football on a high school football stadium, Boone County High School. And I'm playing quarterback, and we're playing tackle football with no pads. And I catch out of the corner of my eye this girl, and she's, I'm in the middle of the field. She's up in the stands, but she's standing there, and she's got there's this girl, and why it caught my attention, I don't have any idea. She was wearing this really grossly ugly coat. Couldn't see her amazing body because she had this winter coat on.
Yeah.
But so it wasn't anything like that. But it just and I said to somebody, and I said, no, man, anybody know who that girl is? And her brother said, yeah, it's my sister. And I'm like, oh, okay, never mind. So the next time I saw Lori, I was at a funeral, St. Paul Catholic Church. And I didn't even know the guy who died, but I went with my mom because I didn't want her to go by herself, right? And my dad was at work. And so I saw Lori coming back from communion, Catholic Mass, and I can see her today as if it's happening. She had on a white dress, a little spaghetti strap sundress kind of thing, pink flowers, little green leaves. I leaned over to my mom, and I said, Mom, you see that girl coming back from communion? She said, yeah. I said, I'm going to go out with her. I'm pretty sure I'm going to marry her. And my mom, I had never met her. And my mom said, does she know that? And I said, not yet. So I ended up asking her out, and we did.
So you're like, what, 17?
I was 17. I was probably just turned 18. She was 17.
Okay.
We actually got engaged. She was a year. We didn't go to the same high school, but she was a year behind me in high school, and at a different school, St. Henry Catholic High School. She went to. She looked smoking hot in that Catholic school, the Catholic schoolgoer uniform, a little green skirt with Chuck Taylor tennis shoes. But anyway, I digress. Anyway, we actually got engaged the day she graduated from high school. I gave her ring the day she graduated from high school. The ring story is a whole funny story, but we don't have time to take up for that. I'll tell you that later. But but the point is at my daughter's wedding, I told this story that I truly believe, and I said, when God made me, I had to clean it up because it was a wedding reception and a lot of people there.
Sure.
Said, when God made me, He went, oh, damn it,
yeah,
I've completely screwed this one up.
Yeah,
and He looked at His angels and said, hey, quick. Make me another angel to put down on earth to take care of this one, or you ain't going to make it. And that's when He created Lori Herbstreit. Oh. And she's my best friend. She's everything to me. Yeah. And so when I say I'm blessed, then I truly believe I'm blessed. I was blessed to have unbelievable parents, and I was blessed to have this angel enter my life that has been everything to me for 40 years. So I'm a blessed man.
Yes, you are.
That helps me be positive. I look at that and I say, gosh, I'm, and now I'm not working, I haven't worked in 2 years. I retired. Yep. And I'll be 60. So now I was 58. And people look at me and I play golf every day. I drink a few beers and, and go
to Hot Works.
I go to Hot Works. I go to Hot Works in the morning.
Post a couple TikToks.
I go to, and people look at me and they go, man, you're lucky. And I say, no, I'm not lucky. I don't really believe in lucky necessarily. Lucky to me is like you win the lottery, but I don't buy tickets. But I do understand how blessed I am, and I'm very, very, very grateful for it. And I try to stay. That's part of what grounds me in being positive.
You are incredibly blessed, for sure. There's no doubt. I'm blessed to have you here, man.
Thank you, bud.
I appreciate it. So, tell you what, let's do this. When we come back, let's talk about the power of positive thinking, all right?
Yes.
Because we want to talk about mental health,
yes,
personal development, and all that kind of stuff. As you probably know from listening to the Papa Ron podcast, we throw in a few breaks for some of our sponsors. They happen to be companies that I'm involved with, that I own. So I use this as an opportunity to promote my other businesses. When we come back, we're going to talk about all of those things with my boy Johnny Barnes on the Papa Ron Podcast.
Attention.
You're listening to the Papa Ron Podcast. Get involved with the show.
Wow, really?
Ask questions and leave comments or complaints.
Woo! Nice.
Call or text 816-558-6389. That's 816-558-6389. Now back to the show. Here again, your host,
Great.
Showtime, Ronnie Phillips.
By the way, this is my favorite new bumper bed right now.
I like it.
It's a classic. Such a great
I
throwback.
like it.
Although I cannot remember the name of the other guy who sang with Phil Collins on this song. Come on, DJ Johnny Barnes.
Phil Collins.
Wasn't there a black guy that sang with him on this one? She's an easy lover.
I don't know. I should know. You should
Anyway.
always think, I drove out here, drove to your house. You know, it's beautiful. And
Thank you.
your studio place. And I just put my iPhone in, connected it to Apple Play, and I just selected recently added. You should look at the recently added plays. It is all over the board. I mean,
Yeah.
there's a recently added old Tupac song, and then a new song from Justin Moore. I mean, it is.
Wow.
If anybody looked at my Apple Music, they would go, "This guy's schizophrenic weird."
Johnny Barnes, the guy I met about 15, 20 years ago through Mike Kennedy, my boss at Q104 at the time. And then the guy just became family and came to all of the shows, and we just hung out a lot and had a lot of great memories of staying up late, having cocktails, and just singing our hearts out because we were loving life and loving live music. And, part of your success from my vantage point is your ability to motivate others, or your ability to manage and be empathetic to a variety of different personalities, which I think is very important in any role of management, but also is the ability to understand the power of positive thinking and how that translates into personal development. So kind of tell me where your inspiration, like you talked about your mom and just being positive, but when you got into business, it's a whole nother ball of wax, understanding other personalities. So where was it, or who was your inspiration?
I first of all, when you get married at 45 days after turning 19 years old and your wife's 19, the first priority is eating and sleeping indoors. I had 3 different jobs the first year, just trying to find something. I managed a restaurant, I managed a convenience store. I did, but I got fired from the convenience store, different story, and I ended up getting a job driving a Coke truck in downtown Cincinnati. You might not have known that, but
I didn't.
And so I knew after being on that truck for a year that that's not what I wanted to do the rest of my life, because I went to the chiropractor 3 days a week because my back hurt. But and I knew I wanted to do something different, and I wanted to be a leadership role. And so I took this is a crazy story. In 1980, think about this. In 1980, we got married in 82. In 84, we had our first daughter, Kelly. So we were 21. It just tells you we didn't have to get married. We were just we were just stupid.
Yeah.
But in 1983, driving a Coke truck, I made $47,000.
Wow.
That's
Okay.
a lot.
That's a lot of money back then.
We were living in a mobile home because that's all we could afford. We paid $10,000 for it. I mean, we're probably the only hillbillies in the world. We're the only people in the world that put new wall-to-wall carpeting in a mobile home because we just had money. We didn't know what to spend it on.
Wow.
And then in 1984, we had our first baby. Bought our first house, real house, and not a trailer home is not a real house because it is. And
I get what you
don't mean
mean.
to make fun of that because I love mine. In fact, we've owned 13 houses in 40 years. The only one I carry a picture of is that one.
Is that right?
Yeah, but so that year I got promoted. I went into management and I made $19,000.
Wow.
So I went from 47 to 19. My wife was like, "I thought you got promoted." I said, "Look, I'm wearing a tie now." And and so I that was the way that business worked. And back then, because back then the driver was the salesperson too. And if you had a good route, you sold a lot. You make. But then they switched the system. And anyway, so I think the answer to your question is I was blessed again. I just had great bosses. And I remember after I got promoted again, and I got promoted a second time, I had a boss named Chuck Bond. I don't know if he's alive or dead. I'm guessing he's dead. But he was the first one who told me things I remember. And he said, you manage process, you lead people. There's a difference. You manage programs, you manage process, you lead people, and he taught me how to people lead, and then throughout my career, I was blessed to have these. I mean, I worked hard. Don't get me wrong. I put in a lot of effort. I worked. You know, I remember my mother-in-law going. I was working for Coca-Cola and working about 80 hours a week, and she thought I had 2 girlfriends on the side or something. She's like, "John, how hard can it be to sell Coca-Cola? Where are you all the time? You know?"
Right.
But I was just working, and we were still, barely getting by. And but anyway, I just was blessed to have good people that helped me. And taught me. And then in business, you the way you get promoted in business is you do a good job, you work really hard, and then you're blessed to have good bosses who sponsor you for other opportunities. It's about sponsorship. That's the key. And so I had good people like that, and I just picked up things. They taught me the business, and they taught me how to lead people. And then I think I had some natural people leadership.
Sure.
I love people. I'm a very emotional guy. I cry a lot.
Yeah.
I'm like the Dick Vermeil. Remember when he was a head coach of the Chiefs?
I'm not far behind you.
You can't say anything without crying. I cry every day. I'm not kidding. You remember Jim Valvano who said every day you got to laugh, think, and cry.
Yep.
If you do those, are good. That's my day every day.
That's awesome.
I cry every day.
Wow.
I cry mostly when I'm proud.
Sure.
I don't cry when I'm sad. I cry mostly when I'm proud. But and so I've always enjoyed. So my point is. I started with less than nothing, no college degree. I have a college degree now. I have a bachelor's degree in business administration. I like to say I went to college on the Tommy Boy plan. You remember the movie Tommy Boy?
8 years.
A lot of people go to college for 16 years.
16, okay.
And then David Spade's character says, they're called doctors. Well, I'm not a doctor, but I graduated from high school in 1980. I got my bachelor's degree in 1996.
Wow.
Nights, weekends, and stop.
Go.
I had a wife and 2 kids. Back to Lori, I finally got my degree, and she made me put the cap and gown on. She bought me a class ring for my college and made me go through the whole. I mean, I was old, and made me go through the whole ceremony. And she said, all the stuff you went through, you're going to go get.
1996 is when you graduated. Okay,
graduate,
let's kind of sidetrack here for a second because there's a big conversation in today's society about the importance of going to college.
Yeah, I love this topic. I have a total opinion on it.
Yeah, so. Do you feel like that your college degree is what helped you propel to the next level of success?
No, I don't. But I will tell you the motivation for me getting my college. I don't think there's anything wrong with a college degree. I think a college degree is a good thing. I think education is a good thing, but I don't think you have to have a college degree. I had progressed my career. The motivation for me getting a college degree, honestly, was 2 things. One, I had progressed my career to a point where if I lost my job in a reorganization or something like that, I likely would not be able to replace the job without the piece of paper with my name on it because the hiring people thought that it was important. I remember I was well into my career in the beverage industry, doing really well, and I got a call from a recruiter one day. I mean, I'm 30 years into business, 25 years in the business. I get a call from a recruiter. And they said, "Hey, we got your name. This company's really interested. I can't give you the name of the company. Really interested in you, blah blah blah. And would you want to talk about them?" I said, "Well, I'll listen, and I'm not looking, but I'll listen." And the very first question they asked me, "What was my GPA in college?" I said, "What?" I said, "What? Why are you asking me that?" By the way, it was like 3.8 by the time I graduated. But I said, "Why are you asking me that?" I said, "Well, it's very important to this company." I said, "Well, you tell this company that I'm not ever going to work for them."
Yeah,
because after 15 or 20, whatever it was, 20 years in the beverage industry of having success, your most important thing to me is what my GPA was. Yeah. That's where the college thing got way out of whack. And I think, this whole debate about should we pay off student loans and all that shit, which I think is wrong. But I think it's not kids' fault. I mean, they to a certain degree, this country for too long told everybody if you don't get a college degree, you're a piece of shit. And that's so wrong.
Yeah.
It's so I think here's my thought on that is, let me tell you my 2 motivations. One was I couldn't replace my job. The other one was it was the only thing that everybody told me, Lori and I, that we couldn't do when we got married at 19. It was the only thing I hadn't done. They told you'll never have a good job. You'll never have a nice house. You'll never have this. We had all that, but I didn't have my degree. It was kind of the last,
So the only reason you got the degree was just to stick it to him.
Yes. That was a big reason.
Okay.
And I needed it for my career, but
Wait a minute. You did need it for your career.
I did.
Because you just said when I asked you early on if it helped you propel to the next level, and you said no.
I said it didn't. I still believe it didn't.
Didn't.
Did not.
Okay.
Because
so you did not need it for your career, or you did?
Here's my from my experience in business today is maybe different than when I've been out of it a couple of years, but you could get where I got without it. I've got great friends that had, vice president jobs without it. But if you don't have it, you have to work twice as hard. You have to be way better.
Yeah.
You have to stand out in a different way. If you're going to be in that corporate business world, there are companies that won't hire you without one. Mm-hmm. I got job offer. I had a job offer from Coca-Cola Company, not Coca-Cola USA one time.
Yeah.
And when they found out I didn't have a degree, they rescinded the offer. I'm like, thank God I didn't go to work for you guys, because I think you're jerks. But I think in the general sense of where this conversation is going, I think this is really, really important. My thought on having a great life in the United States of America is my three simple things. One is get an education. If you do these three things, I think you've got to. I'm not talking about you're not going to be Jeff Bezos or Bill Gates rich, right? But you can have a good life in the United States if you do these three things. One, get an education and or some skill. Okay, I don't care. You don't have to have a bachelor's degree. I mean, I think you have to finish high school. If you don't, you're really fighting uphill. You're really pushing a rock uphill. But you don't have to have a bachelor's degree. But it's fine. Go to electrical school. You can be an electrician, be a plumber, be a welder. I mean, you need a skill. You need something to rely on to help you eat and sleep indoors, make money. You have to have ability to make money. So get an education, get a job, any job, get any job. I don't care what the job is. I don't care if it's fast food. I don't care what the job is. But when you get that job, you do every single thing they ask you to do, they expect you to do. Look for other ways to add value to the organization. If you do that, you'll never look for a job again. If you these are based on my own life. So,
sure.
So again, I'm blessed. Maybe I'm lucky. I don't know. But that's number two. Get a job, and then you'll jobs will find you. The only job in my beverage career that I ever filled out an application for, honestly, was driving a Coke truck in downtown Cincinnati for the Coca-Cola. There's a difference between Coca-Cola Bottling Company and Coca-Cola USA, the bigger company. But so I don't want to confuse people that I said I didn't work for Coke, but I did. But anyway, and the third thing is, and this is a hard one for a lot of people too, and is become part of whatever you decide is your family unit. Stick with it. Don't quit. And I don't mean to be negative towards anyone who's been through a divorce and how painful that is, and it happens a lot. But and I've got great friends that have gone through terrible divorces and got remarried and have great have what I have with Lori now. But I just think you people quit too soon in a lot of cases. They get, and to me, then you're splitting the pot, man. You're sending yourself backwards, and there's no guarantee that the next. The ones that really boggle my mind, all due respect, I have respect for everybody. The ones that boggle my mind, I've been married 3 times, 4 times.
Yeah.
I'm like, what are you thinking? Just stop doing it. What I mean? Yeah. But I really think if you get an education or you have a skill, you work hard, do a good job, and add value, and then you stick with your family unit. I don't care what that family unit is, Ronnie. I mean, I don't care. I don't care if you don't even have to be married, but if girl married girl, guy married guy, I don't care. You be you, man. But stick it out.
Yeah.
Don't bail. If you do those 3 things, you're well on your way to having a pretty successful life in the U.S.
So I want to dive back into something that I don't know that I really completely understand, and so I want to try to get a little bit below the surface. So you've had great bosses. You made that pretty clear. But you started off with a Coke truck driving job.
Yeah.
Right. And you ended up being the vice president of Kansas and Missouri Pepsi.
Yes, I did.
Okay. So
how did that happen?
You got to have a vision. You got to be able to set goals. You got to be able to have a mentor. Something somewhere made you go ding. It's not like you accidentally fell into these jobs.
No. Here's the thing, right? Number one, and this is a really hard thing for people. And if my wife was sitting here, she would definitely back me up on this. I never, ever, ever cared about how much money I made. I never chased the money. In fact, one of the biggest arguments Lori and I ever have, ever had in our 40 years of being married. We were living in Burlington, Kentucky, a suburb of Cincinnati, and I was working for a beverage company, not Coca-Cola at the time. It was called Cadbury. It's now called Keurig Dr. Pepper. But and I agreed to move our family to Dallas, Texas in 1996 and 1995, 6. I'd already taken the job, came home, told Lori, hey, pack her stuff, man. And you got to understand, my wife lived in the same house from the day she was brought home from the hospital till the day we got married at 19. She never lived anywhere else. She moved out of her mom and dad's house into our trailer, man. That was she came from it was Ozzie and Harriet family. I mean, every single night of their life, 5:30, they all sat down and had dinner together. And if you weren't there, you better have a good reason.
Yeah,
that wasn't my life. I had a different life. I had great parents, but it was a different life. But anyway, came home, told Lori we're moving, and she said, I don't know who we is, but I ain't moving to Texas. I can tell you that. I'm not going. I said, you're going. Yeah, you're going. She said, I'm not going. So it was brutal for a couple. And one thing that Lori's mom told us when
that was one of the difficult days you had. Not a bad day. That was a difficult.
It wasn't a bad day. I think Lori thought it was a bad day, but it wasn't a bad day. It was just a difficult day. But one of the things that Lori's mom told us when we said we were going to get married at 18, 19. Mm-hmm. Other people have given this advice. She said, just don't ever go to bed mad at each other. Don't. And we have seen the sun come up. Trust me. But that in that particular case. We stayed mad at each other she stayed mad at me for several days. And then finally, she kind of came around and said, okay, what's the job? And told her what the job was. And this is the point. She said, what are you going to make? And I said, I don't know. I didn't ask them. Boom. It was like a bomb going off in our house. You're going to move our family. I had two little girls. You're going to move our family to Texas. And you didn't even ask them how much they were going to. I said, I know they're going to be fair. I know they'll pay me what is fair for that role. They got process for that. And Lori, the most important thing is that role gets me to the next role. It opens the doors. Keeps opening the doors. I'd never worried about how much.
You were so free-spirited. Like that,
I just wanted,
because I can see where Lori was coming from. That's one of the first questions I'm going to ask. And maybe it was just different times, No,
it wasn't. I mean, I think it was a different mentality. I'm weird, man. My brain just is connected in a different way, I think, than most people. I just kept saying, Lori, we'll get to where the money is if we just keep learning, if we just keep getting more and more experience. Someday, I know there's money up there, and we're going to get there. We're gonna get there one day. Just don't worry about the money. We'll get there. I saw a lot of people in that industry at the time that really kind of killed their careers because they argued over, I'm not taking the job because they won't give me another $5,000 or $10,000. Yeah. Like, you're killing yourself, man.
Sure.
I took it. We moved. A lot of this.
Yeah, that was where I was going to go next. So you did go to Texas?
We did, yeah. Okay. we were there 1 year.
Oh wow.
And I got a call from somebody else with Pepsi, and we were just there 1 year, and I took a job. I left the company, and I took a job with Pepsi, and we moved right back to the same town we came from. And everybody was happy. My mom and dad were happy. Her mom was passed, but dad was happy. And
bet you she didn't ask you how much you're making this time because you're coming home, right?
Yeah.
Oh, you mean?
Yeah, and we both really wanted the job. Yeah. But the crazy thing is, man, we were only there for 2 years, and then we moved again. We moved away from home again, but. So it's sacrifice. I mean, it's a risk reward environment in business. You know that better than me. We've talked about this. My whole career was in big publicly traded companies until I left Pepsi and went to work for a private company. And we'll talk about that later. But you have been. I've always said to you, man, I wish I was you. I mean, you have this. I never had this real entrepreneurial gene. I had hard work. I feel like I've never in my whole career, and I got some pretty big jobs, and ran a couple different companies, and but I never once in my whole career felt like I was the smartest person in the room. Not one time. The whole thing about surround yourself with really good people and people that are smarter than you and all that, that's really real. But I had the ability, I never felt like I was the smartest person in the room, but I felt like I had the ability to lead and inspire people, which is helpful. Build good teams, inspire them to do good things, and had the ability to understand things pretty quickly. And I think the real, again, back to being blessed. The real thing that happened in my brain, the way my brain works, is I can take really difficult topics and make them simple. Maybe it's because I'm not that smart. I have to simplify everything. So when other people get caught up in all the minutia of all the details, I'm like, okay, look. there's 100 things we could consider here to make a decision, but there's only 3 of those 100 that really matter. The rest of it's all going to lead us back to the same. So find the 3 simplest things. You know, you do A, you do B, or you do C. You pick the best choice, you go. And then if it doesn't work, you go back, do something different. But so I feel like that was the ability I had to that, and that's where my success came from. A lot of it came from just the power of positive thinking. I never, even in the worst times. I mean, when I came to Kansas City, that took over Pepsi, and I'd only been here 6 weeks, and our organization went on strike for 7 weeks.
Really?
It was brutal. I mean, it was the worst part of my business life probably. But I just felt like, hey, we'll get through this, man. You know, it's all good. It's all good. It's all good. You know, we'll get through it. We'll grind it out. We'll get through it. It'll get better, and I'm going to make it better. We're going to build a team that's going to make it better, and we did.
Wow.
I've had to. It's the power of positive thinking.
It really is. But you didn't have a mentor along the way that kind of
lots of them.
Okay, but there's not. I'm trying to get like an emotional one moment where you just the light bulb went off and you thought, "Wow, okay, this guy has really led me down the path to giving me the vision of seeing what the road of my future looks like in a greater scale than I ever envisioned for myself." You never had a moment like that?
If anything, I'll tell you a funny moment like that. That's not what you're thinking it is, but it was. I worked for a guy named Al Daly one time. And Al Daly was really a mentor to me. He was much older than me. I was young. This is when I was working for Cadbury Beverages. I was working out of my house. I was traveling a bunch, and he was my boss. He lived in Memphis, and he was a Southern gentleman. You know, he'd been around a long time. And I went to do my performance review that year, and sat down with Al. You know, and Al looked at me and he said, "This is a true story. I was probably early 30s, you know, mid 30s, and thought I was." Rocking, you know, I'm going, man. I'm going to Lori. Don't worry about the money. We're gonna get to where the money is. And this was actually before we had moved to Texas, but we were still in Ohio then. Anyway, and I went through my performance review, and it was all good, grades and all this shit and all this stuff. And he looked at me and he said, "John," he said, "Call me JB." He always called me JB. JB, you're the best I've ever had on my team. Any team I've ever had, you're the best. You're the best I've ever had. I was like, wow. You know,
that's a big deal.
My head started swelling up.
Yeah. And
he said, "You have the ability to go as far as you want to go. You can run this company one day. You can run another company one day. You can be anything you want to be. You have that much talent. You have that much ability. You can do anything you want." He said, and then he dropped the bomb and he said, "You're never going to get there."
What?
I was like, what? I mean, I was like pissed.
Well, sure. I'm a little confused on why he set you up for this. And then
here's what he said. He said, "The reason you're never going to get there is because you love your family too much, and that's not a bad thing." He said, "You give all the effort you can give, but your family's more important to you than the success that you could have if you get to that level." Okay. And then he gave me this advice, which is awesome. I've told it a million times. Okay. He said,
"This is where I'm going. Yes, give me some stuff."
He said, "You know, JB, I've never been at the top of the mountain myself." He said, "But I've been close enough to see the top of the mountain in an organization." He's talking about it in an organization. "I've seen the top of the mountain. And you know what I saw, JB? The top of the mountain," I lost my ears. "The top of the mountain is covered in eagle shit." That was his words of advice. He's like and his point was, I was so young and so aggressive and so wanted to own the world. And it wasn't about money. Honestly, Ronnie, the thing that drove me more than anything, and if Lori was sitting there, she would back me up on this too. I just wanted security for my wife and kids. Because I didn't have it, man. We were. I mean, Lori and I, when we first got married, we would collect pop bottles and argue about who could take them back to the store, you know, to get money. And we were broke. And our parents were fantastic, but they didn't have any money to give us. They gave us love and encouragement, but they didn't give us any money. They didn't have money to give us. But I just wanted security for my family, and I wanted to do as much as I could do.
Sure. And
he grounded me though, and said, okay. And then I started thinking, okay, well, I could still do some things. Maybe I'm not going to be the CEO. And I think honestly, I never reached the CEO of a company. And I think it's probably because I got to a point where impacting other people's lives and leading other people and getting enjoyment out of that was more important than getting a big job for me.
Yeah, because you're not as hands-on when you're the CEO.
No, and it's you know, those, you get hired to get fired. You know, those jobs. There's a reason why those people make a lot of money.
Yeah,
because they're under tremendous pressure and. it wasn't important to me.
But it sounds like there was no position that was important to you. Like, I mean, you never really had a goal. You were just like living life, doing the best you could with the job you were given. And then an opportunity presented itself and it was like, hey, JB, you want the gig? Yeah, sure. Okay.
I never said no when somebody offered me a job.
Right.
I just said, oh, cool, let's go do it. And it worked out really, really well. And I had a great run. You know, the whole time I was here at Pepsi, man, that was never a job to me. It was just my life. It was just, and I loved every minute of it, man. I loved every minute. It was never like going to work. It was, and I had tough times. I mean, the strike was tough. We had tremendous pressure in that industry, you know, because as the business started to decline, there was a time in that industry where if you showed up and just unlocked the door, business would grow 10%. And we'd had goals like, hey, let's grow 10 in 2010. And, you know, and then people just stopped drinking carbonated soft drinks. And then it became flat is the new up, you know, just trying, you know, and so it was hard. That business changed tremendously, and you just had to manage through all that. But my point is, it became more important to me, and I felt like I had gotten to where I got to, but because I had such great people that I worked for, and they gave me so much, that the most important thing for me was to give back to other people. So I got my greatest joy, you know, going to younger people that are more entry level managers and saying, hey. This like Al said to me, hey, you got great talent here, man. You've got a tremendous amount of talent. And a lot of times, those people did not have college degrees, and I would say to them, if I saw somebody that really I thought had the potential to go as far as they wanted to go, I would tell them that, and I'd say, hey, here's my story. You need to get the degree. You know, not because it's going to make you any smarter necessarily, and I'm not saying education's bad, but it's just going to open the door for you a little bit or protect you. You know, it'll help you. It's an exciting factor.
Or just speed up the process.
Speed up the process, right? And so I would say to them, you know, this is how I got my degree, and I would take them and enroll them. I'd make them go, and I would enroll. And I think I jokingly told you this. It wasn't a joke. It was serious. One time we were having a bad financial quarter, and I was explaining my numbers to my regional VP and kind of getting my butt kicked that day. And they were going over all of our costs by every penny, you know, and he looks at me and the CFO guy starts ripping my ass about how much money we were spending on tuition reimbursement. It wasn't my boss, it was the CFO guy. And he said, he's like, your division spends more money on tuition reimbursement than all of our other divisions in our region combined. Wow. And I looked at my boss and I said, hey, Todd, when you need a new branch manager in another city somewhere else, or you need a key account manager, or you need somebody, who do you call? And he said, I call you, JB. And I said, well, then you should stop asking me why I'm spending money on tuition reimbursement, because we're developing future leaders here. That's what we do.
Yeah, that's awesome. That's a cool story. I do remember me telling you that. All right, before we go to our next break, we got about 10 minutes or so, so I want to get into a couple things. And I think, you've jotted down here some of the notes that I thought we could go by. And you have here, positive thoughts produce positive results, negative thoughts produce negative results. And so was that a product of something you learned from your mom, or was that something later in life you got?
That I went to a seminar one time.
Okay.
In one of the training classes, I don't even remember what company it was. And they put up on the screen the definition of attitude. And that was the definition of attitude. That definition of attitude in this training I went to said positive thoughts produce positive results, negative thoughts produce negative results. And that stuck with me. And over time, as I got older, went through more business, dealt with more issues in my life, both work and not work, it became my gospel, so to speak. And it became, to me, it's the secret sauce of life.
Right.
It is. And I don't know if I actually stole this off of TikTok, this thing I'm about to say. And I had a nephew that just graduated from high school, and his mom, my sister, called me and said, hey, the school wants us, if you would write them a letter, the school's going to give it to him at their graduation. He went to a small Catholic school. And I put that in a letter that, the secret sauce of life is that phrase, is that saying, that thought process. And if you can really build your life around that thought process, you're going to be way farther ahead and having success. And I saw this story on TikTok one time about this kind of parable, and I put this in the letter too, that said there was a rancher, a farmer. He was out in the field, and there was a barn there, and he saw, you might have seen this or heard this, I don't know, but he saw these two dogs. He saw these two dogs, and one dog went into this barn, and he came out of the barn wagging his tail and jumping around, and just looked like the dog was really happy. And then he saw another dog go into the same barn. And the dog came out growling and just like chasing around like you wanted to just fight something. And the farmer's like, what in the world is going on in that barn? And the farmer walks into the barn, and what he saw was the inside of the barn was completely covered in mirrors.
Yeah.
So the thought, the idea is the one dog went in, a happy dog went in and saw nothing but happy dogs.
Yeah.
The angry dog went in and saw nothing but angry dogs. And the idea is, if you can just set your brain as best you can to thinking, hey, positive thoughts produce positive results, negative thoughts produce negative results, and you can share that outwardly, you will surround yourself. You'll attract people that think that way, that are, and you'll be happier. And so that was the letter I put to my nephew.
I love it. No,
I know it's crazy. Some people are thinking to read this. They're going to hear this and they're going to go, "This guy's so full of shit." But it's just the way.
Look.
And again, we're going to get into the mental health thing because it's really, really a problem, and I have a passion for it.
Well, that's what I was about to say. So we're going to go ahead and take a quick break. And I was just going to say that, unfortunately, because the reason I think people struggle with it is because they're living in a society that doesn't allow us to accept that.
Exactly.
And how do we defeat that?
Man,
Johnny Barnes has got an
idea on that.
Johnny Barnes has got an idea on all of that, and we're going to dive into some deep stuff next here on the Papa Ron Podcast.
The Papa Ron Podcast is brought to you by Dumar Solutions. Dumar Solutions, offering affordable chemical and PPE solutions for any industry. Automotive, industrial, manufacturing, concrete, and asphalt construction. Also offering kitchen cleaners, corrosion control, and specialty coatings. Detergents, cleaners and degreasers, laundry care, floor care, odor control, personal hygiene, and much more. Do more with Dumar. Inquire with any of your needs at DumarSolutions.com. That's DOMARE Solutions.com. Now back to the Papa Ron Podcast. Here's Ronnie Phillips.
Classic. Dire Straits.
Yeah, what were you doing when this song came out? Do you remember where you were living? There's sometimes songs can take you back to a certain place in time. Does it do it for you, Johnny?
This was probably in the era when I was, back to where I told you I made $47,000, and then next year I made 19. The year we had our first daughter.
Yeah.
I got promoted 5 times in that industry before I ever got close to making what I made when I was driving a truck. Five promotions. I mean, most people don't get 5 promotions in their career. And then I hit a level where I busted through, and boom, we did good.
And that was right around the time Money for Nothing came out.
Money for Nothing would have been in the era when I was really I was working my butt off, 75 hours a week or something, and not making any money. And Lori's going, "Money for nothing. You're working, you're working really hard, and we ain't got no money." But and one of the Ronnie, one of the things. Speaking of that, I've got 2 beautiful daughters that are both wildly successful.
Yes, they are
great adults now. Mm-hmm. One's 38, one's 35. They're both married to great men and have great husbands, and we have 4 grandchildren. One of the we call it the best mistake we ever made. The first time we had to relocate for a job for me, and we just moved from Northern Kentucky. I was working at Cincinnati, and I got promoted to the branch up north in Dayton, Ohio. Right? So it's only about an hour away, and but we had to relocate, and we had all kinds of babysitting problems and health and daycare issues, which is a big topic in our world. But so there's no cell phones or any of that stuff back in the day, and I worked in downtown Dayton. Lori was working in downtown Cincinnati, and she would take the kids to the daycare. They would cry all the way to the daycare. She would drop them off crying. She would cry all the way to work. She'd call me. I'd be sitting in my office crying, and I'm like, and then the kids were sick, after a couple. This is hard. Okay, this is hard. We are broke, right? And I said, "Lori, quit. You got to quit your job." And she said, "John, we can't pay all of our bills now." And I'm like, "Hey, I'll figure it out. I'll get another job. We'll figure out something. But I'm not doing this." And so we made what we call the best mistake we ever made in our life, which was she quit.
Wow.
And we decided that she was going to stay home and raise our kids. And while I worked a bunch, and I was hardly ever home. And she babysat kids in our house to make a few bucks. She cleaned houses when the kids were in school, just to make a few bucks. But primarily she was a mom. And back then, I love this. People would say to me, back to the college thing, people would say, man, I hope you're saving money for those girls' college. And I'm like, I'm not saving any money for college. And they're like, what do you spend your money on? I'm like, groceries. I mean, house payment. I got a car that's broken down and one that's got $600 a month car payment. Yeah. I mean, I'm so we decided then we never saved a penny for one of our kids' college, right? Either one of them. But yet we just decided, Lori was going to be our college savings plan. We would live off of whatever money I could make, whatever that meant. If that meant we lived in a smaller house, drove older cars, we never tried to keep up with the Joneses. We were just like, hey, let's just have basic needs covered. We never took vacations really or anything. We just we had a great life. We had spent a lot of time with our kids and all that, but we didn't, we had nice stuff, but not great. But, and then we just said, hey, by the time Kelly was our oldest daughter gets to college, then Lori, you have to have a job that we'll live off of whatever I can make, never count on any penny from you until Kelly gets to college age. And then you have to make enough money to pay for college. And that's what we did. We're blessed. Again, both of our daughters graduated from college. They both went to KU, which it wasn't about. I know that's not your favorite school.
I was waiting for that.
I know. Katie actually registered. We went to K-State. Kelly's the oldest. Kelly went to KU, and she was 3 years older than Kelly, so she was going to be a junior, and or she was a junior at KU. And Katie was graduating from high school, and we went up. Katie loved K-State. She went up and registered her at K-State.
Really?
I think she loved the color purple, but
she wanted to be with her sister though.
No, I think what happened was, if I'm totally honest about it, I was running Pepsi then, and I think she realized one day, she's like, oh man, wait a minute. I got a sister in Lawrence that's 21 years old, or going to be 21 years old, who can buy me beer. And my dad can get me a ticket to anything I want to go to. And she's like, why in the hell am I going to Manhattan? That's dumb. And so she went to KU too. But
I'm sure the Wassenbergs could have helped her out in Manhattan.
I love how much I love the Wassenbergs. I always told my brain.
Dan?
No, not Dan.
Jake?
I always told Jake, I said, man, I would love to be Dan Wassenberg. Yeah. In my life, if I couldn't be John Barnes, I want to be Dan Wassenberg. The only person I'd rather be than Dan Wassenberg is Jake Wassenberg. That way I could be Dan Wassenberg longer.
None of these people listening to this podcast are very few, but these are people that are from my hometown of Marysville, Kansas, that were very successful in the Pepsi business. So.
And they also were the Miller Lite distributor too.
That's right.
Miller distributor too.
But
the point I'm making is that both of our girls, they both graduated from college, and we bought them basically new cars when they got out of college, and they didn't know anything. They had no student loans. They had and it was all paid for by the money Lori made. And we set that up by not counting on Lori making any money.
Yeah.
And so, again, we didn't know what the hell we were doing. Man, we got married when we were 19. We were growing up with them. Shit, we didn't know what we were doing, but that's how our...
Just kind of worked out.
It worked out. That's how we
not to say that it was easy and it fell in your lap. You worked your butt off, but it worked out.
The thing I'm most proud of, not that my kids graduated without student loans, but the fact that they realized how blessed they were, and they never screwed it up. They didn't. They both drove those cars till they died. I mean, they
really
almost. Yeah. When Katie, my youngest, was having her first child, our granddaughter Julie, I'm like, she was still driving this Ford Escape that we had bought her, and I'm like, Katie, you got to get a new car, man. This thing's all dinged up. It's got 130,000 miles on it. You're gonna have a baby in the back,
Yeah.
But they're both doing really super good now.
Good. All right. Well, let's transition, because before we went to break, we were talking about how positive thoughts produce positive results and negative thoughts produce negative results, and we're living in a society now where it doesn't even give people the ability to understand that. As simple as that sounds, and when you hear that, when I read it, it's the most simple, elementary mindset that you could possibly have, but it's something that so much of society struggles with, and it's our belief, because we've had some preliminary discussion about doing this podcast, that we feel like that it's society and our American culture that is basically setting us up to fail.
I 100% believe that, and
expand on it.
It's my passion now to try and I'm like every single day I'm like a one-man fight against the system, against the society. I just think we are living in a world right now, and this is what's changed different about everything we've talked about up to my life at age 60, how I got to where I got and all that. And it makes it sound really simple. I mean, I just kind of went through the motions, followed the signs, and lived a good life and lived happy, and boom, good things happen. But in the world today, it is so much harder. And I'm scared to death for my grandkids. I've got 4 of them. The 2 oldest are first graders this year. And it's the system we live in. And I'll tell you who I blame. And I blame the red team and I blame the damn blue team. I blame them both. And the accomplice to all of that, start with the red team, the blue team. We can call them Republicans, Democrats if you want.
Yes,
but I'm calling just to be clear, so we know what we're talking about.
We're not speaking in code here, John.
I'm not talking about the Cincinnati Reds and the Kansas City Royals. Those are my 2 favorite baseball teams. But the Republican Party and the Democratic Party both suck.
Yep,
they suck, and they purposely divide us and the accomplice to all of it is the media. 24-hour media, social media, all of it feeds it. And these so-called leaders who are anything but leaders, elected leaders and they're not all bad. I'm generalizing. Okay. So but the leaders of those 2 parties they've taken the best political system in the world that created the greatest country in the world, and they've ruined it. And they've absolutely sucked the life out of it so that they can have personal gain. That's my belief. It's just, and here's the problem, Ronnie. This is the problem that we're going to have. And this is, you want to get into controversial shit? And I wish we could take callers, because people then we'd really get into it.
Maybe we'll have you back and we'll stream it live.
Yeah, man.
There we go.
We're never going to break out of this cycle that we're in, this cycle of negativity, this divided keeps them in power. They don't want us to be united anymore. The last time, unfortunately, I believe the last time we were truly the United States of America is September 12th, right? The day after September 11th, our country was so shocked, and it was such a horrible, horrific event that for a brief time, it didn't matter if you were a red team or blue team, everybody came together as Americans and said, hey, this shit is wrong, and we got to do something about it. And we're going to be united. And there were flags everywhere, and they weren't, I don't know who's listening. I don't know if I have to keep my language clear. They're not "fuck Joe Biden" signs or "let's go Brandon" signs. Or they weren't. I hate Trump signs. They were American flags flying because people loved this country and wanted to figure out how we could be united against this enemy. Right. That's the last time I believe we were united in the United States of America, and it's just gotten progressively worse and worse and worse. And by the way, it didn't start when the orange guy got elected either, which is a lot of people want to tell you about. That's all bullshit too. It's been going this way for a long time, and they keep us divided on purpose so that they can stay in power. And really, all the angst we had with 45 in office, right? To me, a lot of that, he didn't help himself because he's an angry. I don't like his personality, right? I like some of the decisions he made, some of the things, the policy. Yeah. I can get on board with a lot of it. But you know what?
I told people all the time, if he would just stay off Twitter, I'd be okay.
Yeah, I talk about media and social media. I obviously I started doing TikTok a little bit recently. I just kind of gotten into that a little bit, and I do Facebook because it helps me keep, and Instagram because it helps me keep up with my family who lives in different states and all that.
Yeah.
I refuse to do Twitter because it's just nothing but a platform for hate. Yep. It's for chicken shit people to post whatever they want because the person that they're talking about is not sitting right next to them.
Keyboard badasses is what I like to call them.
I'm tough. I'm bad. I'm smarter than everybody else. And in order to get a click, I have to say something that's negative about somebody. I have to point something out. Yeah. It could be the smallest thing, but the whole people who live in glass houses shouldn't throw stones. Nobody lives in a glass house in today's world.
Nope.
Everybody throws stones at everybody.
Yeah.
And everybody and everybody, you're either throwing stones or you're offended. One of the two, or you're me.
So you mentioned September 11th, September 12th, whatever, the events of September 11th really bringing the country together. And I would agree with that because I do remember living in Tucson, Arizona at the time, working for our radio station and all the radio stations in the building going to simulcast, and they were being like 24/7 reporting what was going on, because obviously this was something unlike we had ever seen since probably Pearl Harbor. Yeah. And so, the radio stations and us as personalities were going out, and it seems like at the time, and there's a point to all this, so I'm sorry I'm taking a long approach to it, but fine. We're just out there, setting up our radio station tent, and we're trying to collect money for the American Red Cross. Yeah. For just a variety of different things because of the horrific impact that attack had made. And you're right. Like, I've always kind of lived, subscribed to the conservative policies.
Me too.
But I never felt this hatred, or now I'm not going to, let me rephrase that. This is back then. Yeah. Have I found myself in the trap where I was hating on the other side? 100% agree.
Yeah, because 24-hour news media and social media that tells you have to do that.
Yes.
And everybody's fallen in that trap. I can fall in that trap too. My
point is that during the events that took place of 9/11, and all the people that were coming up to the tent, never once do I sit there and I even try to judge them like, ooh, that person's definitely liberal. Yeah. That person, oh no, geez.
How about
that's a Bernie person right there.
Seriously, how about the heroes that ran into the burning building, into the building that's fallen down, the firemen and the first responders and even civil, there wasn't anybody in that building that said, hey, I'm going to try to save this person because they're Republican, but I'm not saving that person because because they're a Democrat. Or as firemen are running into the building, they're not going, hey, where are the Democrats at? Where are the Republicans? I'm not so sure that if it happened today, it wouldn't happen that way.
Maybe.
It's gotten that bad, and we're never going to fix it. Here's my point, and this has become my mission. I don't know if I'm not being effective at it, but one person's never going to be effective at it, but I'll never quit trying. But we're never going to, in my opinion, we're never going to get out of this rut. We're never going to fix this problem until there's some leader or leaders of both parties that say we're both wrong. We're both right, but we're also both wrong. And we have to change our behavior. I hope, because I'm a positive, optimistic guy, I hope that happens in my lifetime, and I pray to God that it happens in my grandkids' lifetime and my kids' lifetime. I don't have any optimism that's going to happen anytime soon.
So let's do that. Let's try to do that. And I got a unique way of maybe trying to approach it. You say you're going to be 60 here in about 4 days, right? So you've been around the block for a few presidential elections.
I've been ever since I was 18. First time I could vote, I never not voted.
Let's put.
But I almost, you know what, Ronnie? I didn't mean to cut you off, but I almost did not vote in the last one.
Why?
I got so disgusted with the process, and I'll tell you I in fact I posted on Facebook, and which I broke my own rule, because on Facebook I post. You see my Facebook.
I know.
I post pictures of my grandkids. I post positive stories about things that I think are really cool, positive.
You don't do politics.
No, and I scroll all through that bullshit. Yeah. But after watching the first presidential debate, I sat there in my house and I was just disgusted, and I put on Facebook. I just out of just pure frustration, I posted that I used this exact word: I do not give a shit who the next president of the United States is, and it doesn't mean shit to me. I could care less, and in fact, I probably won't even vote for the first time in my life.
Wow.
Because I think they're both horrible, and I think that both parties are despicable, and I think the process has gotten so corrupt that it just doesn't matter. I don't really believe that, but I believed that at that moment.
Yeah, no, I agree. So I'm gonna challenge you, and I'm gonna challenge myself. I'm gonna take a unique approach here to say, because I think part of the problem that both parties have is that we're always on defense. We're on defense, like as Republicans or conservatives, we have our standard, the certain policies that we subscribe to. Yeah. And then you got the liberal side, and they've got their things which is fine. That's what you're into. That's what I'm into. But so let me ask you this: who has been first of all, have you ever voted for a Democrat for president?
No, I have not.
Have you ever
I
walked away from
I have voted for Democrats in public office, but
Okay.
never at the presidential level.
I haven't either, but I will say this, and you can say all you want. And look, this is me trying to like play, hey, you know what? Calm down, Democrats. I'm going to try to do my role here, my part in saying that you're not all evil. You're not all bad. Let's try to meet in the middle. So here's my way of trying to meet in the middle.
Yeah.
I think Bill Clinton was a good president.
I do too.
I mean, you can talk about the scandal all you want. I think that there's
I think his morals were bad.
Sure.
I think he's a super intelligent person, and I think he did a lot of really good things as president. I could have voted. I was like you back then. I was younger, and I really didn't care about the social issues back then. I just ignored them, right? I mean, I was like that. I voted 100% for fiscal policy back then because I was young and I was trying to make money. You guys want to talk about, I don't care on both sides. You want to talk about abortion? You want to talk about gays in the military? I don't care. You go ahead and talk about it. All I give a damn about is I'm working my ass off and I'd like to keep a little bit more of my money instead of giving so much of it away.
So then, George Senior didn't help himself by saying no new taxes.
But you know what he did? He knew that he was writing himself a political death sentence when he said. But at the time, he truly believed that the country needed that tax increase and that he was a patriot. In my opinion,
I'm having all these epiphanies right now. Seriously. And think about this, because that would have been like 1992 when Clinton took office for the first time. Is that right? 1992? I think it was.
Yeah.
Had to have been 92. Anyway, so you know who else is in the mix in that whole deal?
No, it would have been. So who was after Reagan? Clinton was after Reagan.
No. Bush. Bush had one term for 4 years, and then Clinton.
Right.
Then Clinton. Right. But see, Bush said in his first administration that there would be no new taxes, and then there was, and so Clinton used that against him.
Yeah.
But guess who else threw a wrench in that whole campaign?
Ross Perot.
A little guy from Texas called Ross Perot. And that's the guy.
Just because you're qualified to run a general store doesn't mean you can run a Walmart. You see what I did there? I used one of the guys. Remember that? That was a live debate. Back when that was a line he used against Clinton.
Here's the thing. I loved Ross Perot, but you know why? Because like we're talking about right now, I didn't like the division that the country felt like that there was right there. Now, I asked my dad this. He's 70 years old. I go, Dad, have you ever seen the country as divided as it is today? And he says, I haven't seen it this way since Vietnam.
Yeah, exactly.
And
I think he's right.
And he's right. And he said in some ways it's probably worse, now. But, I guess what I'm saying is that Ross Perot was the guy who kind of came in and says, like, screw you and screw you. He's John Barnes right now.
Yeah.
He's John Barnes that basically says, to hell with you both.
Yeah, you both suck.
Like here's why I am here, because I can't trust either one of you.
Yeah. You could make a case, and I think you can make a case, and I think this is where the number 45 didn't help himself, but he essentially was the closest thing we've had to an independent third-party candidate. He just, in order to get elected, he won the Republican nomination to everybody's shock. I mean, how many videos have you seen of all different people saying, well, I can tell you this, Donald Trump will not be president, Nancy Pelosi or anybody else said that, but and yet he became president, and I think he was probably the most shocked person of all.
Yeah.
But I think all of the spewing of hate that happened after that was because, and from again, in my opinion, from both parties, even his own party, because an outsider came in and screwed up their game. Mm-hmm. Hey, whoa! You don't come. We've set the. This whole world's a big monopoly game, and we've got all the best properties already. Don't come in here screwing this shit up. And he came in and screwed it up. He tried to flip over their board, and they didn't like it. And they had to. And what's happening right now? I don't know. I don't know what he did or what he didn't do. Okay, and you can't. There's no news, so you can't follow the news. And I didn't watch the January 6th shit on TV. That's the last thing I wanted to watch. But I can tell you. I mean, there's a faction in this country that is absolutely going to do anything they can to that guy to make sure he doesn't run again.
Yeah.
And personally, I hope he doesn't.
So You hope he does not?
I hope he does not.
So who do you want? Who? I mean, as a conservative,
you're gonna think this is crazy too. By the way, let me just point this out. I've never voted for a Democrat, but I say this to people in my lifetime, and I've been voting since I was 18. And you have a daughter named Reagan, right?
That was on purpose.
Yeah, that was on purpose. And I have pictures of Reagan all around. And so if I had my favorite politician or my favorite president in my lifetime, it's obviously Ronald Reagan. And it was not even about him being a Republican, really. It's not even about his. Yeah, it's about his fiscal policies and everything else, but it was really about his optimism and his ability to do what no politician can do today is compromise. And you just have this vision. I had this vision of, you remember who the Speaker of the House was when Reagan was president? Tip O'Neill. Great big dude from Boston with this big, heavy Boston accent. And I just had this vision of those two guys getting in the back bar at some, at the Capitol Club or someplace in Washington, D.C. with a bottle of Jameson. And they're sitting there going, all right, listen, Tip, I need this. Okay. I need this. And then there's Tip O'Neill going, bullshit. Yeah. No way, man. I can't do a Boston accent, but you're not getting that, Yeah. And then Reagan will say, okay, here's the deal. I'm going to give you this. I'll take this, and we'll both be winners. And they brokered that stuff in the back alley.
Yeah.
That cannot happen in today's world. They cannot do it, because today it's got to be, in order to be divided, in order to keep each other in the most power, it's not only good enough for you to have a good idea or you to say, this is what I think we should do. You have to make your competitor look horrible.
Yep.
You have to have a scandal on them. You have to dig for dirt. That's how you win today.
When you think back at those, and I might get this wrong, but when you think back in 1992 when it was George Sr. versus Bill Clinton, there was no social media.
No, there was no. I often think, you and I are both Reagan fans. I've said to people, even as great as communicator as he was, and as great a leader as he was, I wonder if he could be successful in today's world. I don't know that he could. But my point I was going to start to make, and I forgot, was that I haven't voted for a Democrat, but in my lifetime, there has not been one, this is what I tell people, there's not been one president that I agree with 100% of every single thing they say. I agree 100%,
right.
But there's also not been one I disagree with 100%.
Yeah.
I don't care, name any of them. I mean, Clinton, Bush, Obama. I mean, you name any of them. I don't agree with every single thing they do, but I don't disagree. But I don't let it affect me either. I go on about my life, and I'm like, okay, whatever bullshit comes out of that house on Pennsylvania Avenue, I'm going to figure out how to deal with it, and I'm going to move on about my life.
But that's how this conversation started, John, is because it has affected people's lives.
It has.
I mean, we talk about mental health, we talk about the division, and we talk about the power of positive thinking, and there's so much negativity right now, which is what has inspired you to start the TikTok with and give out these hats that we're wearing right here that say "Be nice," and we're going to get into that very, very shortly. Yeah. But when you say it's not bothering you, but maybe, okay, so you're the exception, but we need to be honest, and it is bothering others.
It is.
And it's affecting others, and they don't even realize that it's affecting them. And hell, for the longest time, it was bothering me, and I didn't realize that it was affecting the way I was conducting myself.
And the way out of being bothered, my point about being bothered is I'm bothered by it all. I'm just, look at the national media. I can't stand Sean Hannity as much as I can't stand Rachel Maddow. Because they're both sitting there making millions and millions and millions of dollars just by stirring the pot.
Yeah.
And they have their followers. One's on the left, one's on the right. And they have their followers. And the scary thing is their followers only listen to them.
Yeah.
And then they only talk to other people that are exactly like-minded. And so there's never a conversation. I don't even turn a television on unless it's to watch a sporting event. But I read constantly. And I read, and what I try to do, and this is what I would suggest, maybe help people, but I don't know if they can do it, is I know, if you read enough online, and there's no newspapers, but you understand the source, right? There are liberal sources, there are conservative sources, just like there's Fox News, there's CNBC, there's the New York Post and the New York Times. There's so I read them all, and it's interesting if you do that, you get the same story written from a completely different, opposite viewpoint. that comes to a different, synopsis. And so for me, I read them both. I don't just try to get stuck in one side or the other side. I try to read them both, and then I try to make up my own mind about how much of the bullshit I'm reading I think is really truth and what really happened.
Yeah.
That's what I try to do for myself, but I don't, it's hard for people to, have enough time to do that, dedicate enough time to do that. But I what aggravates me is I think, we have a place at Lake of the Ozarks, so we just sold it. And, you drive through the middle. You drive from here to Lake of the Ozarks, man. You're driving in the middle of Trump country, man. To me, it is, and I agree with a lot of that.
Yeah.
But what's become bothering me is if you put up a "fuck Joe Biden" flag in your yard, you are the problem. Mm-hmm. You are part of the problem.
Yep.
If you have if you run around chanting "Let's go, Brandon," you're just as much part of the problem as this person over here who's offended by whatever. You know what I mean? In my opinion, that's where I'm at.
Yeah, but let me ask this then, because there's I struggle with this inside. I've talked to like my dad about this because I always like talking to him because he's older and he's seen some shit, and he's been to, he was in the Vietnam War. He was actually serving during that war, and so he came back, feeling like the hate from or the disregard from our own country after serving in a war that nobody felt like we should be in. So I like to get his perspective on things, but the thing that I talked to him about is that why is it that it's okay? And again, I'm not saying this is right. This is just an emotion that I'm feeling. Why is it okay that we can stand down and watch the other side go into our inner cities, burn down buildings, smash in windows, riot, loot, and do all the things, but we aren't allowed to stand up for that, or we're not allowed to speak our voice, and if we do, then we're racist, or we're this, that, and now again, this is a reaction type of question that I'm presenting. Yeah. And I think that ultimately what it comes down to is love and empathy for people, and instead of hating people, pray for those people, and try to take a higher road. But I'm just saying these are the raw emotions, and maybe this is why people post, let's go, Brandon.
Yeah.
That's their way of rebelling against the people who tear down our cities when they don't get their.
I posted one of my Be Nice posts on TikTok, and I had my Be Nice hat on, and I don't remember what the topic was, but I always start out like it might have been. I was on my boat, and I'm like, hey, this is one I would put on there. Like, I'm like, hey, what's interesting about being a boater? If you're on a boat, when you're passing another boat, you always wave at the people on the other boat.
Yep.
And the people on the other boat always wave back. If they don't wave back, they don't know they get out of their way because they don't know how to drive a boat. But they always wave back. And my point on the Be Nice thing was, I don't know who's on that other boat. Could be all liberals, could be all conservatives. I don't care.
Yeah.
I didn't ask them. So anyways, it was that kind of theme.
Sure.
Those are kind of the theme of a lot of times what I post. And I got a comment back from a guy that said, hey, that's all good, but where was this Be Nice thing 4 years ago? And I replied back to him, I 100% agree with you. But we got to start somewhere, man.
Yeah.
And I'm a one-man band. I'm starting with, I'm going to be nice.
No, man. And look, the reason I have you on, because I felt like it's all stuff that I care about. It's conversation that I like to have. And I think that you're right with the concept of pushing a different, because unfortunately it is a different narrative than what we're being pushed. But I also want to just speak raw emotion too. And you're right. We all have to start somewhere. And
I think, Ronnie, I'm going to make this point that I'm going to go back to my mom. My mom, probably one of the hard. You talk about a difficult day. It wasn't a bad day. It turned out to be a good day, but it was a difficult day for me. It was my mom's funeral. I mean, my mom was. I loved my dad. My dad coached my baseball teams. He was a great dad. I could never have asked for a better dad. But my mom, after your parents pass away, you're going to realize how much of you is them. It's just what happens. You absorb it. But I was really, really close to my mom, and I think my mom had the greatest impact on my life, on the way I think and the way my brain. And my mom was this little tiny lady. short lady that lived by cliches. What a lot of people think are cliches. Children learn what they live, and one of her favorite sayings was, "You just need to accept people for who they are and love them anyway." Mm-hmm. And she would just pound it into us, And I remember this is interesting, the middle ground, and maybe this is part of my influence. Okay. So I have a sister that's 1 year older than me, and she has 4 daughters. I have 2 daughters, and then I have a sister that's 9 years younger than me. She had 1 son, but my oldest daughter, Kelly, got married, and then my sister's oldest daughter, Jennifer, got married in Columbus, Ohio. And the interesting thing about that is Jennifer, my daughter, is married to a beautiful 6'4" black man, and we have 2 biracial grandchildren that are just spectacular.
Beautiful kids.
Oh my God, they're gorgeous, by the way. But they're just great kids, and my son-in-law is a smart, hardworking, beautiful man. And I dare anybody to come in. You want to see me get negative? I dare anybody. Anybody, if you're listening, anybody, call me. I'll give you my number. I dare anybody to come and tell me that my daughter shouldn't be married to a black man and there's something wrong with my grandkids. I will.
That's a problem.
The mean will come out. I tell you what, you don't stay away from Lori Barnes if that's the case.
Yeah.
But anyway, so and then my oldest niece Jennifer married her girlfriend, and she got married in Columbus, Ohio. Back when it wasn't legal to get married in Ohio then, so they had a civil ceremony. It was like any other wedding reception you've ever been to. Kind of make a joke out of this. It was the only thing that was different was, the DJ says, and now we're going to hear from the father of the bride. Here's Mr. Kaiser, and he gets up and speaks, and then he goes, and now we're going to hear from the father of the bride. And my brother-in-law gets up and speaks. So it was like okay, that was weird. That was different, not weird, but different. Mm-hmm. So anyway, my dad was living his last couple years of his life at a nursing home, about 2 hours away, and he was not able to make it, and he was just really wrecked emotionally by the fact that he was not able to make his granddaughter's wedding. And so Lori and I, the day after the wedding, drove down to where my dad was, pushed him in his wheelchair outside. It was a beautiful sunny day. And I said to my dad, he wanted to hear, he wanted to know everything about it. How was it? What was it like? Blah, 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 blah. Mm-hmm. And I said, Dad, I don't know what my mom would have thought about yesterday, but I got to believe, and I might cry when I say this, I got to believe that she would have been proud of our family, because one of the things she pounded into us every single day was, you accept people for who they are and you love them anyway. And I said, I think we got it, but I know for sure that her granddaughter's got it. Because her oldest granddaughter's married to a white girl married to a black man, and her second oldest granddaughter is married to a woman. Yeah. And I feel like our little family is what America should be like. We love each other. Mm-hmm. My niece that's married to her girlfriend, they have 2 beautiful kids. She delivered them both, obviously with a donor. They're raising them, and my sister, I remember the day before the wedding, my sister and I went for a walk, and she's like, she made a joke about it. I don't know if I'm the father of the bride or the father of the groom. And we had a conversation. It kind of set me back a little bit because I never really had this thought, but I know other people do it. And she said, I don't know that I understand this. But what am I supposed to do? It's my daughter. I love her, and I said, oh my God, I love her too, and she said, John, you wouldn't believe how many people in Jennifer's world where their parents just disown them and never talk to them again for the rest of their life, and I'm like, oh my God, you gotta be kidding me. She goes, no, it's real. Yeah. And I think that's wrong. I mean, I think, and this is where, we get really raw. What bothers me is, so I think our world should be like My Little Family, where love is love, and people accept people for the decisions they make, and they make those decisions, and they, if you believe that's wrong because you read you interpreted a book that said it was wrong, then God will sort it out later. But I wish the whole world could be that way, and it unfortunately it's not, because again, it's part of the divide.
Sure,
so
I do look. I mean, we can find little things or big things, I guess, depending on how you want to look at it, agree or disagree on. But at the end of the day, one thing that we can all agree on is that we are all. I mean, I'm a Christian, and I say that with no shame, and
I think
we're all
me too.
children of God.
Yes.
We're all children of God.
I agree.
And we were put on this earth to love one another and to love and honor him. So based on that, you can interpret it however you like. But at the end of the day, it still comes down to loving your brothers and your sisters.
Yeah.
And I don't necessarily have to agree with you on where your mind is on some things,
Nope.
but it's still my duty as a son of God to love you and respect you and be there for you and help you in whatever it is that you need at any time.
But isn't it sad though that sometimes, and I say this with all due respect, because I am that way too. I believe in God. I pray every day. I believe that God has blessed me, and I'm grateful and thankful, and I want to give that back to other people. But what bothers me at times is the people that consider themselves the most Christian or the most holy are the least tolerant of other people. And there's and on the flip side, people that demand the most tolerance because it's different. It's no matter what they want you to believe, it's not mainstream, right? It's not. But if you just look at percentages, right? So whether it's gay or transgender or whatever, be that if that's who you believe you are, that's fine. But it's not. It's I don't know what what percentage of the population is transgender, but it's not 99. It's not more than 50%. It's not the majority, right? Mm-hmm. So the people that what frustrates me sometimes is the people that feel that they are the most Christian, or the least forgiving, and people that demand the most tolerance are the least tolerant. And I'm like, okay, that help me. I'm really struggling to help me understand that.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? It's like they, and there's a point where, and this gets really, I'm sure I'll piss somebody off, but I hope not. I'm trying not to, but because I love everybody.
No, we're just having conversation.
I love everybody, but there's a point where equal rights flips over to special rights and starts trampling on other people's rights, and then that ain't right either.
Can you elaborate on that?
I don't know whether it's the I once had to. I'll give you an example. I once had to remove. I was running a company. I ran a food service company, and we had a manager who managed a small unit. What I mean by food service company, we fed people that were working or school. We did lunch. Ran some lunch things for schools or whatever. We Cerner, for example. They got cafeterias in their building. We ran those restaurants in the building. That's what we did. The company. So we had a small unit. It was in a public place, but it was I'll tell you I could tell you it was in Johnson County.
I know what you're talking about, but
it was a place whenever I felt like I was beginning to fall into a trap of having a bad day, I would go visit this particular unit, and because what it was is a place where unemployable people were employed.
Okay.
That's the facility that we ran lunch in. We ran a cafeteria in there.
Okay.
And it was designed. I mean, I'm talking people that are pretty severely handicapped physically or mentally, and could not be hired. But they, like the kids some of the people that worked in our lunch room, they were mentally challenged, and we had a special lady there that was the manager of that particular unit that was able to work with them. So they're putting sandwiches together, and they, every second one they put the bun in the wrong place or whatever. She just goes behind them. And it's great people, and they're there working. And you could, I never went there without coming out emotionally crying, because and I never left there. I always left there thinking, my God, I am the most blessed person in the world.
Sure.
Because I'm not one of these people that really have challenges.
Yeah.
I think I might have a challenge. I'd go there.
Yeah.
Man, my challenges this ain't nothing
New
compared to what they're going through, right?
Yeah.
I had to remove that manager. She was only about a year or two from retirement. And I had to remove her because they claimed that she used the wrong pronouns. The wrong pronoun for someone. There was a person that had worked there for many years, was a man or a boy or a man, and then
biologically a male.
Yes. And then decided to be a female. Fine. But she had worked in this place for a long, but they she referred to this person, her, as a him, as he. Hey, can he do this? And the person complained, and they wanted me to fire her. And I told him that we would work with her and that we would give her, we'd pay to have sensitivity training or whatever, and she would work harder at it, and that wasn't good enough. They made us remove her. I told her before I went to the meeting, I went over to her and I said this lady's name, and I said, no matter what happens in this meeting I'm going to, you don't worry about having a job. As long as I'm running this company, you're going to have a job. Okay. I'll find you. If I have to remove you from here, which may be the outcome, I'll find you another job. But that's what I'm talking about. That really, I had to remove this lady who did a great job. They loved her. We had letters from people that worked there, the staff, how great this person had been for so long, and we had to remove her out of her job because the one person complained that she used the wrong pronoun.
So who's the most tolerant and intolerant? I can't say the word. Tolerant and intolerant.
Well, I think
this is where you were. This is how we got here.
This is how we got here. The person who decided to change their pronoun. Okay, that's your prerogative. I got no issue with that.
But zero tolerant.
But you had this lady almost fired because you were offended because she made a mistake. That is not tolerant.
Right.
That is wrong.
I agree.
Okay, that's bullshit.
100%.
And I moved her to another place and not as good a job as she had, and she ended up retiring. But later, but that's a good example of what I'm talking about when people who demand tolerance are not tolerant.
Here's the other one that I'll get into, and this is the one that fires me up because is again trying to do the very best I can, and I'm far from perfect, obviously.
None of us are perfect, man.
Far from it. But trying to challenge myself each day to be the best Christian that I can be. And so I don't judge, but I also understand what God says in the Bible is right and what is wrong, and as a son of his, then I want to do what I can to live by that so that I put myself in a position to go to heaven. That's just me. But the problem I have, and the problem where I get real judgmental, is when it starts impacting the potential safety of my family.
Yes.
And where I'm going with this is that when you start telling boys who identify as girls that it is okay to go into the same restroom as my daughter, and then you start bringing in curriculum into the schools that is then going to basically brainwash these kids, then that's when I start having a problem. And it's really hard for me not to speak up on that.
I agree.
So I don't know how far we want to go down this road, but
it's a spiral, but it's part of what will feed us back to the mental health topics that we have. We are, as a country, we're creating our own mental health problems. And you want to hear something really that's probably a little too cynical, but somewhere along the way, this is one of my somewhere along the way, I feel like we became so spoiled in America.
Oh, for sure.
We became so spoiled, and we had it so good that we had to begin to create shit to be offended about. We had to create controversy, and look.
Did we have to do that, or do you feel like that was leadership that was pushing that on us, or was creating narratives?
Well, if you run for office, in order to get elected, you have to create a reason for change, right? You can't say my opponent has done a good job, but you should take them out and replace them with me. So but at one point it was just ideological debate, right? It was, I think we should have more taxes. I think we should have less taxes, or I think that's what the debate now. But then it became, not only are you wrong that we should not have more taxes, but you are a racist, or you are, or you back in high school. I found out that you dated a girl that, and you didn't take her home on time. I mean, whatever. I'm making this shit up as I go.
No,
but
I get what you're saying.
They just have to keep digging and digging and digging and digging, and to build their case on why you should pick me and not them. And then the other problem we have is, and I've spent plenty of time in Washington D.C. And I've got friends. I had a good friend. I have a good friend who was a 4-time, United States congressman. I thought he did a fantastic job. And then he got beat. And you know what? And he's a good man. I know he's a good man. He's married to a good woman. He's got 2 beautiful daughters, and he's probably not listening. But the sad thing is, he's making a lot more money now because you know what he does? He's a lobbyist. There, you want to talk about here's a topic that and I see what's on your envelope there, and you and I have had this debate before about these mass shootings. Right? You want to talk about they're horrific, man. I mean, how many more 9-year-old, how many more first graders or whatever these kids in Texas were, or teachers, or have to get killed before we do something. You hear people, I'm tired of thoughts and prayers, or we have to take action. My opinion is, you want to take action? You want to take action that will make a difference, really?
Okay.
Let's start with campaign finance reform and term limits. In term limits, you have to be careful about, because Missouri enacted term limits, and it turned out to be a disaster because they can't. If you flip the whole Senate and the House every so many years, because people get term limited out, and then you have people there that takes them 4 years to figure out how a bill gets created, how it makes a law, and you have chaos. But campaign finance reform and lobbying reform, will.
And you think that's going to have an impact on mass shootings?
I think it could have an impact on mass shootings, yes.
Okay.
Because mass shooting, the big blue and red, one side's going to say one side's going to say guns. We have to have gun laws. We have to have more hard gun laws, and guns are the culprit. And the other side's saying it's not guns, it's mental health. And probably both sides are right in this particular topic. But I think the one thing that we can agree on is that there's something mentally wrong with someone who goes in and opens fire at a school.
Yeah.
There is no sane person anywhere that goes into and so we have created an environment where more and more people get pushed to the edge. This is because it's back to the mental health thing. They get pushed to the edge because they're outcast, or they've been outcasted, or they didn't get their way, or they didn't, or they, there's all this negativity that we heap on people, push them over the edge, and they do something unbelievable. And whether it's, God forbid, a mass shooting, or on the flip side, something that I'm really passionate about and work hard on right now is people take their own life. And we have a huge epidemic of teenage suicide.
Sure.
It's greater than it's ever been. And there's a point, and I've listened to some of your podcasts, and you almost got to that point. God forbid you didn't. And you're Matthew Blades, and he said, "Hey, wouldn't it be easier if I just jumped in front of the truck and while I'm taking my run?" He used that line that I've heard people say before, which is, you get to a point where, it's just despair. You just get to a complete level of despair, and then you think, he used a line that said it's a long-term solution for a short-term problem.
100%.
And there's a lot of that, and I have one of my best friends in the world who lost his son to suicide, and it's the reason why I'm very, very involved in one of the charities that I'm involved in.
Yep.
And that organization was already there, but it shifted in 2017 after we lost Nick, that to 100% focused on mental health and trying to address it. But there's so much pressure on these kids. Social media, and all the negativity, and I think that adds to, we're killing our kids.
Yep. I mean, I honestly, I've said this so many times, and I wish there was a way that I could do the TV show and all the different business ventures that I'm in and not be on social media. I wish there was.
You can't. But there's positive things about social media.
There is. But
did you see the picture of my two 6-year-old granddaughters going to their first day of school?
No, I didn't. I didn't.
You missed
Sorry.
You missed a
I'll
great
have to
post
check that
by me
out. Yeah.
on Facebook. You missed a great. And I said they call me Papa, not Papa Ron, but
No, I get you.
but,
I get you.
And my post was a picture of both these girls on their first day of school. They're so beautiful. They go to different schools, but same close by. And I said, I'm pretty sure Papa's the only one who cried today on the first day of school.
I just think back when life was so much simpler. And I mean, we covered a lot right there, by the way.
Yeah, we did.
And
we skipped abortion altogether.
Well, that's fine.
We kind of touched
That's
on gun
fine.
laws and we skipped abortion altogether.
That's fine. But I guess where I wanted to go with this was that back when life was what I feel like was more simple was at a time when you didn't have 24 hours news networks and you didn't have social media. And I feel like that is ultimately to despise, and it's the reason because dopamine, if we know what dopamine is, right? This is the stuff that people are putting in their head when are you still having troubles with your headphones?
No, I'm good.
Okay. Basically they're just living on this high, this fixation. They're trying to get more dopamine. They're trying to see, if I post this, who's liking it? Who's commenting on it? And they're so addicted to Facebook and social media, or they're maybe more reserved and they're scrolling through social media and they're seeing all these people post all these glorious things and how their life is so perfect. And this person is now feeling even shittier about their life because they're not living up to that standard when in fact, what all those people are posting isn't even real.
No, it's
fake. It might be real for the moment, but that doesn't mean their life is what it seems to be on Facebook. I really feel like the demise of what is happening with mental health has been a combination of politics. It's social media and 24 hours news
media. And
fair enough.
And I'll add one more.
Okay.
The breakdown of the family. The breakdown of the family is adds to all of this.
Yeah.
And especially in the minority community. Especially the minority community. Especially I have a black son-in-law.
Yeah.
And if if you don't think that there is that's opened my eyes and there's some things that happen in his life that you would be surprised about, or maybe you wouldn't be, but I didn't really even know what a podcast was. I kind of knew what it was, but I never turned one on. Yours is the second podcast I've ever listened to. The other podcast I started to listen to is a guy who joined our board of directors For the Kids Foundation. His name's Tim McCoy. He owns you should meet him, by the way. He owns a marketing company here called Yodel, based in Kansas City. He's a great young man. Black young man went to Lee Summit High School. He has a podcast called Black in the Middle.
Black in the Middle.
Black in the Middle.
Okay.
And it's him and two of his buddies, two other black guys that went to Lee Summit High School and were like one of, they were 3 of 12, 12 black kids in a class of 1,000, school of 1,000, whatever numbers are, and they're all successful, professional, middle class people, and they just sit around and do what we're doing. They sit around and talk about current events and topics, all from a perspective of being successful middle class people in a mostly white world, and they're black. That was the first podcast I ever listened to. And, but in that minority community. Not these guys, because they, this is my belief. It's not a black or white issue to me. And this just pisses people off when I say this. To me, it's a zip code issue. We don't have a racial problem in the United States. We have a zip code problem. And what I mean by that is, if you're one of those 3 guys and you grew up a black young man in Lee Summit or in Johnson County, Kansas, or you're born in Leawood or you're born in Lee Summit, you got a pretty good chance to have a pretty good life. In fact, I would say you have an equal chance that I have if you're a white kid or a Hispanic kid or whatever. But if you're a black kid born on Troost, you're starting way behind the start line. You got an uphill battle, and I think it's our system that keeps them that keeps it that way. That traps them, and I think I read a stat. I saw. Read a thing that said 70% of African American kids are born to single parent households now.
Oh, I've heard that too.
70%, and because why? Because our government encourages them not to get married. Again, get an education, get a job, and become part of a family unit and stick with it. our government's programs support the exact opposite of that. They don't encourage you to go to school. They don't encourage you to get a job, and they encourage you to have as many kids as you want without being part of a family unit. Because the more you have, the more money you make.
Yep.
I mean, what's the definition of insanity? Doing the same thing over and over again and expecting a different result.
Yep.
When are we going to change the policy? We don't want to change the policy, man, because one team's base keeps that team keeps.
Why is that so hard for them to understand?
Don't know.
That's what I don't understand.
Don't know.
So many people. I mean, I feel like that. I feel like 45 actually brought more people, believe it or not, because of how many times he was called racist, which still blows me away. But I do feel like that during that 4-year term, if you will, that he did bring more awareness to what he actually did for minority communities.
Yes.
And I think it's opened the eyes to some, but I think it's actually just ignorance, because people don't take the time to research.
Children learn what they live, man. And I'll tell you, here's why I believe it's not a racial. I'm from Northern Kentucky originally, and where I'm from in Northern Kentucky, people don't really from Kentucky don't consider it. It's more Cincinnati, Ohio areas. If you fly to Cincinnati, Ohio airport, and you land in Northern Kentucky, but if you go, the same problems that we have in the inner city with mostly, I'll say black. I don't know if that's politically correct or not. Like, I call my son-in-law black, not African American. You know why?
I think it's black.
You know why? Because as far as I know,
is that right? You think Q? I think they'd rather. I don't know.
Yeah. I don't know.
Let's go with black.
I don't. But I call him black and not African American. As far as I know, he's never been to Africa. So he's just a beautiful black man.
Yeah.
But the same problems we have in inner city Chicago, inner city Kansas City, inner city wherever with mostly black people, minority. I could take you to Eastern Kentucky, coal mine country, or parts of West Virginia. Exact same issues: poverty, out of wedlock, kids being born, and they're all white. It's not a color issue, man. The media and political parties want to divide us and tell us that it's a color issue, that it's a racial. It's not. It's the environment that you were born into, and then how do children learn? They don't know that you're a white kid born in coal country in Eastern Kentucky, and your parents, work in a coal mine, or they get a check from the government once a month. How do they know that's not the way the world works?
Right.
Who's teaching them? And it's the same for minority kids in the inner city. Who's teaching them? Who's teaching them? It's aggravating.
Wow,
man,
we unpacked a lot there. I do want to go back to this. I want to go back to guns. Real quick, because you and I we've had these conversations.
I'm not a gun owner.
And I am.
Yes,
and
you are.
Big time.
Yeah.
Several. In fact, you probably saw the bolt door when you came down the stairs.
Yeah.
There's miniguns in there.
Yeah.
So we're going to talk about guns here, and then we're going to take a quick break.
I feel the safest I've ever felt in my life
being
in this place.
You should. You really should.
But just for the record, just to set the table for if we're going down this road, I am not a gun owner. I don't. But I do not. I'm perfectly fine with you owning as many guns as you own. I have no issue with that.
Okay, so but when you were talking earlier, you had said something that I wanted to revisit, which was there's probably truth to both sides of the argument, being that there's mental health issues and then there's too many guns.
I never said there was too many guns.
Okay, so what did you say?
I said we probably need some gun legislation.
Okay, what does that look like?
And here's I'll take it one. I'll set this. I got a great example for this. I spent most of my career in the soft drink industry. Okay,
right.
And when the obesity epidemic, when that was the biggest problem in the world, kids were getting fat. Right? Who was the target? The soft drink industry, okay? And we brought some of that on ourselves because there was a time when we believed in the industry that if we could get to kids and whatever a kid drank in high school, and then they would buy when they became moms or they'd be dads. There was a belief of that in the industry, and we would go to these high schools and create these exclusive contracts. It started out, we'd buy them a scoreboard and they'd say they sell nothing but Coke or Pepsi, whatever company you're working for. And then it just progressively got more and more and more to where we were writing $1 million checks to school districts,
really?
for exclusivity. Right?
Oh, gotcha.
And so we became the poster child for. I mean, I can tell you this: in 35 years of being in the soft drink industry, not one time did I ever get up in the morning, either put my driver uniform on or putting my tie on or suit and tie on when I became an executive. Not one time did I drive to work going, man, I hope I make a kid fat today. I hope I make a kid fat. And not one time in my whole career did I ever believe I made a kid fat. Okay. But all these legislators wanted to we were the devil. We were the target. We have to ban them from schools. You know what? And you know what the American Beverage Association did? There's really 3 major soft drink companies in the United States, and Coke, Pepsi, and then Dr. Pepper, Keurig now. But the American Beverage Association got together, and they said, "Listen, we can't be the target anymore. We shouldn't be the target. We're not doing anything wrong, but we need to change our ways to take some of this heat off of us, and point out that we're not a part of the problem. We're part of the solution. We created more and more products that have less calories. Blah 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 blah. But what they did, which was really, really amazing, and I'm setting this up for the NRA, was they came together as an association, and they wrote a set of rules that said these are the only beverages. This is how we're going to approach sugared beverages in schools. Okay, it didn't say we were going to stop selling sugared beverages, but we said in schools we're not going to sell it was by grade. It's complicated. It was by grade and it was by product type. We self-disciplined our industry as an industry and said, we're going to take sugar beverages out of schools at certain levels and whatever. I think that's a model if I were running the NRA. And I'm not a gun owner and I'm not an NRA member. Okay?
You're warming me up, Barnesy.
You're
warming me up. Here we go.
Oh, man. It's like talking to one of my brother-in-laws now. It's like, you're going to come out of your chair at me going, that's just a slippery slope. That's all. It's a slippery slope. You bet. Okay. That guy, 45, you can see video of him. So if I were the NRA, and Congress just passed a gun legislation that I think should have been sponsored by the NRA. I think the NRA should have gone all to the people they own, the elected officials that they already own, because they spend a ton of money lobbying. They own them, and they say, hey, they should have wrote their own gun legislation adjustments. Not banning guns, not banning AK-47.
Yeah, what exactly are they going to do, Barnesy? That's the problem here.
They're going to say that you can't buy an AK-47 if you're 18 fucking years old. That's all they had to say. Okay. The gun legislation that passed is bipartisan. We got to.
Are we talking about AK-47s or are we talking about AR-15s?
Whatever. I'm not a gun guy. So
well, but it makes a difference.
Okay. They an automatic weapon.
You're talking about a semi-automatic weapon.
Whatever they are. You know better than me. I'm talking about.
We're talking about the AR-15 because it's what's been most popular and probably was most prevalent in some of the most recent. Right. School shootings. Right. It's not an AK-47.
Right. Okay. Whatever it is. I misspoke. But
fair enough.
My point is, they could have sponsored some legislation that said, "Hey, listen, we're not the problem." Just like the beverage industry, we're not the problem. We're not the problem, but we want to be. But we have a problem. Okay. The country has a problem, and we want to be part of the solution. So here's what we would propose. Whether it's, I don't see anything wrong with a waiting period and again, I have not dug into this issue to the level that I should, so I don't want to sound like I know the answers when I don't. But my point is, instead of just completely being defiant to the death, they should compromise. Okay, and they should come with that. It's not going to affect their sales. It's not going to take guns away from you or from Americans, but it's going to. It's probably too late now because the legislation that they could have proposed, and maybe they did, maybe they were behind the scenes, and the puppet, master back there going, okay, go make this happen, because this will pass, but it won't hurt us. And but I think that's what they should do.
Okay, so that sounds great. That sounds just perfect in a perfect world. The problem is that it's not a perfect world, and we know, and if we're paying attention, that is not what the other side wants. They don't want gun control. They want all of your guns. Yeah. They want to take away your gun rights. In fact, it is.
There might be some people in that party that want that, but I don't think the majority of them do.
Well, Joe Biden, even freaking on the campaign trail, actually said, who is the guy who says, oh, that's going to bug me now, who the politician is that he hired, who says that you're going to be the one who's going to be hired to go get all those guns You're going to go door to door and help me get all those guns. Anyway, the fact of the matter is, and I'm going to digress here just a little bit, but my concern is not so much about my gun rights as much as it is about the Bill of Rights. That's what my biggest issue is. My issue is that the Second Amendment was put into our Constitution for protecting our country from tyranny. And I think that if we're looking real closely, we're on the brink of tyranny right now.
Man, I hope not. I hope not. But
you don't see it.
But yeah, I do. I mean, I do.
That's that. So that makes
when
it.
The FBI goes into Mar-a-Lago,
yes,
and then you see all these people on the street. If you're watching the video and you're going, "Oh my God, man, I'm getting up. I got 8:00 tee time. All I'm worried about is hitting the ball down the middle of the fairway." But I should be worried about whether we're gonna have a civil war by the time my 18 holes is done. I mean, and the only thing that kind of keeps me calm, Ronnie, about that is shit. When you watch something on TV, I don't know if shit's real or fake anyway.
That's true.
I don't have any damn idea.
That is true.
The whole damn thing could be staged.
Right.
You get into, some what you mentioned earlier, some of these looting and riots and all this shit that happens in the inner cities when something bad happens. And that, most of those people that are there, they're not even from there. They're professional antagonists.
It's 100%.
That get paid to go create disturbance.
That's my problem, John, is that there's so much bullshit out there, and there's all of this stuff that looks like it's something, but it's not. And that's a perfect example. You think to tell me that I am supposed to compromise a little bit?
No.
I'm supposed to compromise a little bit and give up a little bit of something because there's these school shootings and this is going on. When I see all of this other crap going on, if anything, it's inspiring me more to hold on to that Second Amendment.
And there's the problem. And not the Second Amendment. I'm moving on. But the problem is, I thought what you were going to say was, I'm watching all this happen from one, and I'm not supposed to protest. No. And my only point I want to make to the world is, and this is what I try to, is you're both freaking wrong. Okay, if you stormed the Capitol and went through the doors and hurt somebody, you're wrong.
Yes,
you are wrong. There's no justification for that. There's no more justification for that than some Antifa idiot kid, that goes in and loots a store and blames it on black people. I mean, they're both wrong.
Yes,
but one side cannot admit that the other side is wrong.
Nope.
And the other side will not admit that the other side that they are wrong. It's both people are wrong.
Yeah.
There's right and there's wrong.
I agree with that. I was still on the Second Amendment because that's the part that you got me fired up on.
I know.
You got me fired up on
I don't
that.
want to take your guns away.
Look, and here's the thing is that it's not about, because if there's somebody is really mentally sick and is really wanting to cause harm, taking the AR-15 is not going to save the problem.
Maybe not. But you don't know that for sure.
Okay.
I'm not saying take it away. I'm saying make it harder for that mental person to get it. Especially if you're a minor.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, that guy, 45, I watched him sit in a video with, legislators, and when they were talking about gun legislation, and he said, "What are you going to do about this? You can buy a handgun. You can't buy a handgun until you're 21, but you can buy that weapon at 18. Why is that? And is it that big a deal to say you have to wait till you're 21?
I wish I knew what gun he was talking about.
He was talking about the one that was used in the shooting at not Sandy Hook.
What I do remember happening.
There's another child. It wasn't Texas. It was the one that happened before that.
Well, I can tell you that what you might be, which is none of those. I'm probably going to screw this up on I'm going to go out on a limb and say this is what I think. I believe it was during the Trump administration when the Vegas shooting happened, and the big controversy with that was the bump stock.
Yeah,
which is a bump stock is a piece of a device that goes on a semi-automatic weapon that activates it and treats it like an automatic weapon.
Right.
And Bush, damn it, why do I keep calling him Bush? Trump was basically saying no. There's no reason for this, and they started, I believe, outlawing bump stock shortly after that. Does that sound right to you, Q?
I think that sounds right to me too.
So
again, I'm not.
And now again, this is a Republican president who's all about the Second Amendment and all about the NRA, who actually went against the grain and against the NRA and push back.
The video I'm talking about was him sitting there with a bunch of legislators in the Oval Office, and he said, "Look, I'm an NRA member. Love the NRA. I can't do my Trump. Love the NRA. Great people there. Great people.
Yeah.
Patriots. Great Americans. Great Americans. But I'm not going to make them happy. But I think you should look at this in your legislation. I think you should make an adjustment here because I can't buy a handgun when I'm 18, but I can buy that weapon that was used in that mass shooting. I think you should take a look at it. I'm just, and I know I'm not going to make that's him saying. I watched I saw that one live. You couldn't make that one up.
I just feel at the end of the day, I'm going to finish with this, and then we're going to go to break, and we're going to wrap up with some of the organizations that you're involved with because I want to
just make one last point about this as an example.
Yeah.
Okay. And I think this is an interesting example. When's the last time you've heard somebody talking about Obamacare?
Not recently.
No.
Although we were joking about the Obama phones a few weeks ago.
If you go back to 45's election, that election cycle, it was all about we've got to get away. We got to do away with Obamacare. We're gonna repeal and replace. We're gonna repeal and replace. You know
Never did.
You know why they didn't? Because as it turns out, they don't have a better damn idea.
Yep.
And as it turns out, Affordable Care Act, which is really the title of it, not Obamacare, the Affordable Care Act, actually works pretty damn well. And you know how I know that? That's how I get my insurance.
Okay.
I'm retired. My wife is an independent contractor. She's a 1099 employee. She has no benefits. When I retired, went on COBRA for a year, whatever. And then we had to figure out how we're going to get health care. Again, I'm blessed. I'm funded well enough. When we sat down and looked at our budget, we thought, okay, man, we've got to budget X amount of dollars to buy health insurance on the market, on the open market. And as it turned out, we bought it. We bought our health insurance in the exchange, and it works pretty good. Okay. It works real good, and it's affordable. And but going back to, and I'm not going to mention his name, but the U.S. congressman that was my friend. And the reason I'm bringing this up is because you said the other side wants to take every gun away. They want to take all of our guns away. The other side, the red side, wanted to repeal that, and the blue side wants wants a single payer system, right? What they really want is the government to manage all of healthcare, like Canada does, and the reason why this, I think, has become not really a topic anymore is because through legislation, the Affordable Care Act, which people like to refer to as Obamacare, they actually came up with a solution that's a compromise that is pretty good. And this guy who was the U.S. congressman years ago said to me, he goes, "Barnesy, I can't talk about this in public because I'll get kicked out of my party. But here's why Obamacare is a good thing. Because it's a stopgap. It's a place where the other side wants, universal health care for everybody, single payer system where the government runs everything. We cannot let that happen. It's a disaster. If we let them have this, they won't get that.
Okay.
And as it worked out, once it got started off terribly.
That's what I was just going to say. I mean, the last however many years since Obama has been in president, they've had plenty of time to tweak it and make it better.
They've tweaked it and made it better. Yeah. And I tell you what, I have for Lori and I, and we're 60 years old. Fortunately, we're healthy people. I basically have the same kind of health care coverage that I had when I was an executive working. Then with the company providing it for me, with the same kind of deductibles, the same kind of coverages I have, and I'm paying for it myself, and we're paying not a whole lot of money for it a month. You'd be shocked if I told you what it was. And now, the one thing
is it that cheap?
We're paying $530 a month.
Wow.
I thought we were going to budget $2,000. We thought we were going to have to pay $2,000 a month for healthcare coverage.
Okay.
We're paying $530 a month. Now, here's the one thing that you should know before, I don't know how many people are watching this at this point, but because we've been rambling, but if you, the one downside, if you are in love with your doctor, okay, it's first of all, it's state to state. We're Texas residents now. Okay. So in Texas, where we are signed up for this program, there's a lot of options. I mean, there were probably 50 different plans and provided by 10 different companies that we could choose from. In other states, there might only be there might not be as much choice. But in Texas, we had a lot of choice. But the one thing that is the one downside is if you're in a situation where you've been going to the same doctor for 20 years and you just love your doctor, if that doctor's not in that system, you have to change doctors.
Okay, but this is the problem where they screwed up because they lied to everybody saying that you could.
Well, you can. I mean, it's possible that you can. It's based on, there are doctors that we were going to that when we picked our healthcare coverage plan on the exchange, basically what they're doing is you're buying the insurance on the open market, but you're paying for part of mine. You're getting subsidy. You're based on your income.
Yep.
You are based on your income. You're getting what they call a discount to the plan costs this, and then based on your income, we're going to give you this much discount, and then that's the net you pay.
Yeah.
And how smart am I? We moved to a no state income tax state at the time when we have no income. Right? I don't have a job.
Yeah. Right.
But so my point on that is back to the NRA, the NRA part is I think the NRA could have taken a leadership role and come into a common sense compromise policy that would stop I'm coming to get all your guns.
And my only defense to that, Barnesy, is that everybody talks about common sense gun laws, but they don't know what the common sense is. It sounds great. It sounds great to say out loud. We want common sense gun control, common sense gun laws. Great. And what's the common sense?
My point is the leaders of that organization should come with a plan that says this is common sense gun legislation. Instead of just sticking there doing this and saying, we're not compromising one damn bit.
Right.
Because as soon as we do, it's a slippery slope.
Yeah.
That's the wrong approach.
Okay. And all I'm saying is it takes two to tango. It takes two to tango because somebody's got to start somewhere. I will agree with that.
Somebody's got to ask somebody to dance. If you're going to have two to tango. Somebody's got to ask somebody to dance.
I get it. I get that. But I'm just saying that the reason why they're so freaking stubborn is why I'm so freaking stubborn on the topic, because I'm scared. Yes, I do think it's a slippery slope. I'm seeing, plus I've also got this problem where I feel like there's a lot of conspiracy that's in our politics that we don't even know about.
Oh, there's tons.
Oh, there's so much shit that's going on behind the doors that just makes me not trust anybody. And so when you see all of the rioting and you see all the division and you see that the politics is driving the narrative on 24/7 media, and that basically want us to be divided, and now they're wanting us to implement this gun control thing to where even they've been saying out loud where they just want to take all what they call is assault rifles. First of all, AR does not stand for assault rifle.
I know that. It's
an Armalite rifle.
Yes.
Okay.
I knew that.
Okay. So
you know how I knew that? Only because
you would be surprised how many people. Yeah, well, that's because you read. But you're going to be surprised how many idiots, and that's disrespectful of me to say, but yes. I mean, how many people actually associate an AR-15 as a assault rifle. Anyway.
So here's the thing. We've been now for, 20 minutes, half hour, 40 minutes, whatever.
We should have taken a break a long time ago.
Talking about all these various topics. Mm-hmm. And you could take any one of them, but adding them all together. And everybody's got their one personal one that's the most sacred to them.
Yeah.
Or a couple that are the most sacred. And I don't care, and be damned with everything else, but these are the most sacred to me, and I'm not compromising on this at all. But we could talk about all these different topics, but when you add them all up, it's creating this boiling point where someone's mental health goes to the point where they go into a school and shoot somebody, or somebody takes their own life. And something's got to change, man. Or we're going to killing our kids.
Tell you what.
We're killing our kids.
When we can stop glorifying all of those shootings on 24/7 news media, then come back to me and talk to me about how
you can't expect
we can compromise.
Them not to cover it.
I'm just saying, are they covering it or are they glorifying it?
I don't know, man.
Because
I don't turn the TV
you just got done talking about how 24/7 news media is part of the problem.
Okay, we'll turn the damn television off.
Okay, but that's you and me talking. I'm talking to you.
Stop watching
I'm
it.
saying people in general.
Stop watching Sean Hannity. Stop watching Rachel Maddow.
I do. I don't.
Tell them, stop listening.
I don't.
God forbid. May God rest his soul, Rush Limbaugh. I was a Rush Limbaugh newsletter buyer at one time. I listened to him all the time.
Mm-hmm.
I got to the point where, you know what? I'm sick of your bullshit. I'm sick of you. And I lean conservative.
Yeah. Me too.
I'm sick of you making millions of dollars spewing bullshit and negativity
You know
and
what?
meanness.
I'm going to say
I'm
something.
sick of Sean Hannity. I'm sick of Rachel Maddow. You can name any of them. I'm sick of Dan whatever his name is. I don't want Joe Bongio. Joe Rogan is one of the smartest people. I think I've listened to some of his podcasts. He's a smart dude. I'm sick of your shit. I'm sick of all of you guys making money on the backs of other people by creating stress and controversy because you're just as guilty.
Yeah.
Bongio is just as guilty as Maddow. I can't name another liberal one. Give me another liberal one.
Oh, this is the one that I will probably upset all of my conservative friends when I say this, but I have a tough time watching Tucker Carlson.
Nah, me too.
Because he's a very intelligent person.
Super intelligent.
He's very bright. I think he even went to Harvard. But what I don't like is when he brings someone is on the opposite end. And then again, this goes back to John's theme here with Be Nice. He brings these guys on that are liberals, and it's just to try to see who can embarrass the other one the most, who can shame the other one, or who can outwit or outsmart the other one. And my thing is like, well, boy, I'm really going to date myself now, but it's like, what can we get back to the Peter Jennings days, the Walter Cronkite days?
There's no news, man.
Where it's just like where we can sit down and have a conversation instead of just
turn it off. That's the control you have.
Exactly. I have.
Stop watching.
And I know you're generalizing.
And by the way, when you stop watching that, stop watching the Kardashians too.
Mm-hmm.
Stop watching all of that shit. Turn it off. Go play a game with your kids. Go outside.
Follow Barnesy on
take
TikTok.
a walk. Just go over and introduce yourself to your neighbor and be nice.
Yeah.
And be nice to him and say, hey, is there anything I can do for you? I love going into a convenience store, get gas, get a soft drink or something. And I always say to the clerk, hey, how you doing today?
Yeah.
I'm all right. Is there anything I could do while I'm here to take you from, what could I do to take you from all right to having a great day? Yeah. Is there something I could say? Is there something I could do while I'm here? Yeah. And they just look at you like, who are you from Mars? It's just be nice. Hold the door for somebody. Don't cut somebody off in traffic because you think you're going to get to your destination. You're going to get to the next red light 6 seconds faster than I'm going to.
Being pissed off and angry has just been normalized in our society.
Because it sells.
Yes.
It sells. Anyway, we could go on forever.
All right, so here's what we're going to do. We're going to take a little break here. God, this has been a great conversation, though. I've enjoyed this. We could go on and on and on.
We could go for days, Bub.
Woo! But John A., he's been very involved with some foundations, some organizations around the Kansas City area that deal with charitable aspects. And in fact, it actually deals with suicide prevention and mental health. We're going to dive into that next when we come back with John Barnes on the Papa Ron Podcast.
You're listening to the Papa Ron Podcast. Keep up to date on new podcasts, new discussion topics, and future casts. Follow us on Facebook, Instagram, TikTok, and YouTube. Search Papa Ron Podcast and be sure to like and leave a comment. Now, back to the show. Here again is your host, Ronnie Phillips.
You're going to have to edit some of this out.
No way. There's not a chance. Not a chance. Raw and authentic.
Nobody will listen to the whole
under
thing.
the surface. Don't sell yourself short. Papa Ron Podcast is on episode 15 now, man.
I'm telling you,
I've got a huge fan base. No, I joke.
No, it's been very. I listen to it, man. I don't get a chance to watch the live. I mean, watch the video. I have to check that out. But
yeah, no,
because mostly, I put the earbuds in and I'm either driving or I might be,
working out,
riding my bike, or I might be at Hotworks, and
There
instead
you
of
go.
listening to music, I'm listening to a podcast. That's when I grab the time.
Yeah. So, first of all, we're gonna get close to wrapping this up, but before we do, I want to talk about the organizations that you're involved with that are, for the kids, for suicide prevention, mental health, all that kind of stuff. And then I really want to bring it full circle with your deep desire and passion to put inspiring, positive content on your TikTok with a simple message called Be Nice. Before we get there, let's start with the organizations. You're actually back in Kansas City doing this podcast with me because you were here having some meetings with these organizations.
Yeah, we have. I'm currently on 2 not-for-profit boards. I'm currently the chair of one of them and the co-chair of the other, and there's so much overlap. In one of them, I'll start with KVC Behavioral Healthcare, or actually KVC Behavioral Health System now. Actually, this organization, I've been on this board for 16 years on their executive board, and there's a difference between these two, but there's so much overlap. So I'll explain that. So KVC is a provider. They're a lot of people may not know this, but they started out in Kansas City, Kansas. The origin, not to go back too far, it's almost been 50 years now, but it hasn't been 50 years. But it started out in Wyandotte County with a little thing called the Wyandotte House. There was long story short, I'm paraphrasing this, but there was 5 ladies that went together, bought a house in Wyandotte County because they were kids that didn't have a place to stay. The cops would pick them up, didn't have a place to couldn't take them to their home because it was toxic or whatever, and needed a place to stay. So these ladies went together, bought a house, and they called it the Wyandotte House, and they got it going, and then they hired a guy named Wayne Sims, who was a genius, young kid from Iowa that was a social worker, basically. And he led this organization for 40 years. And For the Kids is for KVC it's a big not-for-profit, operates in multiple states, but it got to start in Kansas. And primarily what it does in Kansas is a lot of people don't know that Kansas was the first state in the United States, and still one of only a handful, that privatized their whole foster care and adoption system. Okay?
Really?
Yeah. The first. Kansas was the first. In 1990, I believe, was the year.
Wow.
And what that means is the state funds foster care and adoption, but they don't do anything to manage it. They hire these not-for-profits. So they do not-for-profit contracts with not-for-profits. KVC is the largest of it, but not the only. There's really 2 or 3 now. And so KVC manages foster care and adoption for the state of Kansas. But that's a part of what they do. They do family preservation work. They operate the only 3 acute behavioral health hospitals for youth in Kansas. There's 3. There's one in Wyandotte County. We have one in Wichita, and we have one in Hayes. And there are kids that they're all adolescent based that just have mental health issues to the point where they cannot be in society for at least some period of time, or maybe you hope not forever, but try to keep those inpatient. Those are inpatient stays. But KVC also does work, similar type of family work and mental health work in West Virginia, Kentucky, Nebraska. They do various different things. It's a big not-for-profit. It's about it's approaching $200 million a year. Not-for-profit. They're a service provider all around family preservation, foster care, adoption, and mental health for kids and families.
Okay, so and you covered a lot there, and
yeah.
It's a wonderful organization.
I tried to do it as fast as I could.
Let's dumb it down though a little bit. First of all, I am kind of curious why it is that you're involved with this. You've been involved with so many different charities over your time, and why you picked these or this, and then 2. How does somebody get involved, or how does somebody seek out the benefits that the organization has to provide? Yeah.
So honestly, 100% transparent, I got involved with KVC when I came here in 2001 to run Pepsi. Okay. And one of those first 5 ladies was a lady named Joanne Ball. Fred Ball's wife, and Fred Ball is the owner of one of the Price Chopper owners, and the Ball family. Fred and Joanne are both passed on now, but their son David and other family operate about 30 plus grocery stores in Kansas City. So here's how I originally got involved in KVC. It was called Call Valley back then. Guy came into my office and he said, "Hey, we'd like to talk to your wife Lori." I said, "About what?" And he said, "About joining the general board of an organization called Call Valley." And I said, "What is it?" And they told me what it was, and it was all around foster care and adoption. And I said, "I'll do it." And they said, the guy goes, "They don't want you." they want Lori. I said, well, you don't get Lori, but you get. And why can't we have? I said, because if you get Lori, we're gonna adopt about 10 kids.
Right.
we're gonna. I mean, and you might get that from me, but so my original involvement with KVC, honestly, was to help my business. One of my biggest customers was very passionate, and really, the Ball family were big, and still are big supporters of KVC.
Got it.
And so I originally got involved in it because of business, and then the more I got into it,
the more you fell in love with it.
Awesome. And then
awesome.
then my wife did join the general board, and I got off of it after a year or so. And then this guy Wayne Sims, who's the CEO, came to me one day and said, "Hey, I'd like you to join our executive board." And I said, "Man, why me?" I said, I'm looking at the people on this board, and it's a pretty small board. There's to this day, there's only 7 or 8 of us, I think, on the executive board. But at the time, I'm like, Wayne, I mean, I'll be the smallest wallet in that room by a bunch. I mean, there's some powerful people around this table. I mean, why in the world would you want me? And Wayne Sims, who's a super smart guy, he wrote a book. You should read it. It's pretty amazing about KVC, but his years at KVC. But at the time, I was very involved in Olathe. Our Pepsi office was in Olathe. I was chairman of the board of Olathe Chamber of Commerce, blah, blah, blah. And what I learned about Wayne Sims is there's a reason for everything. And KVC, called Cape Valley, which became KVC, was moving their offices to Olathe. And they're on the campus out by Olathe Health System out in Olathe. They bought some land from Olathe Health Hospital, Olathe Med, and built new offices out there, beautiful offices, and actually a place where you can rent a hall and stuff. That was another one of his geniuses. The organization was constantly renting ballrooms to hold meetings or trainings for foster parents or whatever. And so he decided, you know what, instead of renting one, we're going to build one.
There you go.
And so we're going to use it when we want to use it. We'll rent it to other people, and we'll make money off of this thing. He was a very innovative guy like that. But anyway, I was pretty influential at the time in Olathe a little bit, and I think that's what he wanted help with.
Gotcha.
So that's KVC. I've been involved with them for a long time. They're a big family. Just think of them as an organization that spends 100% of its time helping families and kids do better.
So someone who would need to seek out what they can offer, how does that?
Well, first of all, they're KVC's belief is kids grow better in families. So the first goal of KVC always is to try to keep a child in the family that they're in the house that they're growing up in. Okay. And so some of their work is around, they have social workers, and these people are amazing heroes that don't make a lot of money. Most of them have MBAs. They've spent a lot of money for college, but they have a passion for helping people, and they're young, and they go into people's homes, and they try to help them be better parents, and they try to solve the tension that's in there so that the kids can stay in that home. But if they can't, then KVC works really hard to find them appropriate foster family. And then ultimately, if it needs to be, to find a permanent home, a forever family, by being adopted. And KVC, I don't know the stats exactly, so I'm close on this, but I don't know the exact current stats, but I'm going to give you an example of why an organization like KVC is so much better than a government managing these services. So here's the question I always ask when I go out and speak about KVC. What percentage of children do you believe, what percentage of children who are permanently adopted, and that's a long process to be permanently adopted, because before you can be permanently adopted, your biological parents have to sign away their parent rights, and that's a long process. So you've now been in a foster family, you identify, a family's been identified, they want to adopt you and become part of their family forever. What percentage, and you legally are adopted, you go to the court, you're now part of that family. What percentage of those kids nationally end up back in the foster care system? You'd want it to be 0. Yeah. What percentage nationally?
God, I wouldn't even know where to guess. Just tell me, I guess.
It's roughly in the low 30s%.
Okay, I was going to say 20%.
Yeah, and again, I don't know the stat today. I used to know these numbers off the top of my head. I don't know them today. I should, but in Kansas and KVC, that number typically runs around 5 or 6%.
Really? That's awesome.
That much better.
That's great.
Yeah. So that's that organization, and they are a service provider. Okay. And a lot of what they have begun to really be much more involved in than they used to be is the mental health issues, right? And because when all this tension happens in families and the families start to break down, then all of a sudden you start to have mental health issues and suicide creeps in, or kids cut themselves, or they pop pills, or they it's tragic.
Yeah.
And they are actively involved and have social workers and provide services that try to address those topics. The other board that I'm on is called For the Kids.
Right.
And For the Kids they don't provide any service. But For the Kids is they are a fundraising organization. Okay. Their sole purpose is to raise funds. Okay. And For the Kids got started as Nick and Jake's golf outing.
Oh, really?
It was a Nick and Jake's bar, restaurant.
Now, prior to Nick passing?
Way prior to Nick passing. Okay. Way prior to Nick passing, KVC, For the Kids has been around probably approaching 20 years. Nick and Jake's Overland Park opened 2001. It's the same year I moved here. But not long after that, Kevin Timmons, owner of there's two owners.
Sure.
I don't know if people know Nick and Jake's. They have 3 locations now. They're very successful. They've been in business a long time. Mm-hmm. And Nick and Jake's name came from the 2 partners' sons' names. Yep. Kevin Timmons, his son named Nick. Doug Watkins, who's the other owner, has a son named Jake. Yep. So he created this concept from scratch called Nick and Jake's, and it's fantastic and it's great. So that's where their name came from. So Kevin Timmons and a guy named Dan Beitler, who's part of a construction company, just got together, and they had a friend that had a kid in Children's Mercy Hospital, and they went to visit, and they thought, man, we should do something to help Children's Mercy. So they decided to have a golf outing. It's just typical. A lot of bars have golf outings, right? And a typical bar golf outing, makes, if they net $20,000 to donate to somebody, that's a great job.
Yeah.
So Nick and Jake's decided to have a golf tournament. And first year they made a little bit of money like that, and it got bigger, and then it got bigger. And if you know my friend Kevin Timmons, he is a passionate. Mm-hmm. When he gets behind something, man,
he becomes a bulldog.
He is a bulldog, and Beitler was his partner in this whole deal. This thing started to grow. So then they named it the For the Kids Foundation, and they officially made it a foundation probably, years ago. Could call it 10 years ago. And all of a sudden, that bar golf outing was raising not $20,000 a year, but a couple $100,000 a year.
Wow.
And then it started raising $500,000 a year.
Wow.
And then it started raising. So 2 years ago. And I've been involved in it off and on and supported it because
you're the friends.
Because I'm friends with Kevin. You know how I got to be friends with Kevin? I'm a Pepsi guy. He opened up his restaurant, and I wanted him to put Pepsi in that restaurant. And for the next 15 years, I worked my ass off to try to get Pepsi and Nick and Jake's. Never made it happen.
Even through the connection of you guys all being friends with all of us at the radio station, and that never worked?
Never got it done.
No way.
I've never put more effort into a customer and not gotten it than Kevin Timmons and Nick and Jake's.
And he became a close friend.
And what I got out of it was one of my very best friends.
Yeah.
Okay. So I got it better than, screw you, Pepsi. But
that's awesome.
So in 2 years ago, so in 2017, we lost Nick. Of Nick and Jake's to suicide. He was just turned 22 years old and kind of hit that wall. I mean, he had a bad, he lost a girlfriend, lost a job, he was a great kid, funny kid, almost like a John Belushi kind of thing, a Robin Williams kind of thing. He was always the life of the party. He was a funny kid, but obviously had demons below that surface and masked it pretty well and took his own life. And so For the Kids has always raised money for Children's Mercy Hospital. That's the primary beneficiary of For the Kids. We basically raise money for Children's Mercy. And they've bought ambulances, and they've started a canine program. They've done all kinds of things for Children's Mercy. But in 2017, after we lost Nick, the whole focus of the organization shifted to mental health. And so we've raised money. That's what we do. We raise money, and we raise a lot of money. And 2 years ago, not last year's tournament, but the year before, for the first time ever, netted the one-day golf outing, netted and donated $1 million.
Wow!
In one day. Last year it was $1.25 million.
That's incredible.
And of the $1 million, $100,000 of it went to a place called Children's Place, which is another child organization down in.
I think I remember hearing about this tournament. George Brett was involved with
George
that.
Brett's
Sports
involved. Tom
Radio.
Watson has gotten involved. David Faraday has been involved, and a lot of other celebrities. And it's a hoot day, and it's. And at the end of the day, what you do is we've got some great sponsors, and we've got great participants. Fill up 2 courses now. We had to expand it to 2 courses. Sells 2, and it's a unique thing. It's a 2-man scramble instead of a 4-man scramble. So there's 4 2-man teams on every hole, and on some holes there's 8 people playing.
That's a long day.
It can be a long day, but you'd be shocked at how fast it moves. But
really?
it's nuts. And then at the end of the day. There's a huge auction. There's a silent auction and a live auction, and what you end up with there is you end up with some really, really nice people with big wallets, big hearts, and a little bit of alcohol, and a little bit of fun, and a little bit of pushing, and the auction raises a bunch of money. And so 2 years ago we netted $1 million. Last year was $1,250,000, and all of that money goes towards mental health issues. We have funded adding social workers into the Blue Valley School District. That was a pilot program that's been super successful. We've created an endowed professorship at Children's Mercy Hospital. Dr. Sarah Soden has that role now. She's the head of the behavioral sciences division, if you will, of Children's Mercy, and her salary and her team's salary is paid for in perpetuity with an endowment created for the kids. And the thing that we're working on right now, the tournament's coming up October 3rd, but the thing we're working on right now is that for the first time ever, Children's Mercy is going to open on the Children's Mercy campus a dedicated anxiety and depression clinic to handle. Because what happens to the hospital is, if you have a kid that if God forbid Reagan breaks her leg, and you take her to Children's Mercy Hospital and they X-ray it and they see the bones broken and they put a cast on it and you go back 6 weeks later or whatever, they take the cast off, they look at the X-ray, the bone's healed, you're perfectly healed, bone go on, and by the way, your insurance probably paid for most of that services. That's what Children's Mercy does, and even worse than that, whether you have cardiovascular issues or cancer issues or whatever, you take your kid to Children's Mercy Hospital and they get great care. If you have a child that has a broken mind or a mental health issue, you first of all as a parent don't know what to do.
You're right.
The sad thing is the first thing you do is what you did. They try to mask it. They try to deny it. They try to. They try to.
So many people do that.
It's because they reflect on the parents reflect. God forbid. I mean, they reflect on. They don't want their neighbors to know that my child's struggling. They don't want their neighbors to know because they blame themselves. They say there's something wrong with me as a parent. Yeah. And that's not the case. The first thing we talk about all the time is it's okay to talk about it. You have to talk about it. If you see signs, raise your hand, man. Yeah. Get help. Yes. But then if you get to the point where a parent wants to get help, they don't know what to do. You try to call a specialist, try to call your family doctor, and you say, what do you do? And they refer you to some mental health specialist and they put you on hey, my kid's got a problem right now. They just cut themselves with a knife and hurt themselves and I got a mental problem. Yeah. You get the cut fixed, but then you go, what am I going to do about mental? Oh, we can get you in next January the 3rd is our next opening. Right. So they don't know where to go. So Children's Mercy, and by the way, these issues are not funded by insurance, but they're not funded at the same level. So for a hospital like Children's Mercy, which is a not-for-profit hospital, by the way. Right. But even as a not-for-profit, you have to make money because you have to at least take in enough money to stay in business. You have to pay for the lights and the equipment and the talent and all that. So you have to make money. But these programs don't make money; they lose money, a lot of money. Yeah. And so that's why it's really difficult for hospitals to invest, a lot of money to try to do this. But Children's Mercy has committed to, along with For the Kids is Children's Mercy's partner in this mental health, behavioral health world. We have become the fundraising arm for Children's Mercy and all dedicated to mental health. Wow. So Children's Mercy is going to open, and we're going to fund it. one way or come hell or high water, we're going to fund it. Anybody who wants to fund it, let us help. You could help.
Sure.
They're going to open a anxiety and depression clinic.
Okay.
At the Children's Mercy main campus in Kansas City. Mm-hmm. It's not new brick and mortar, but they're dedicating new space in the hospital specifically to anxiety and depression, and hiring. We looked at the plan just at our last board meeting. More than 20 new staff to start out with so that they think they can handle as many as probably 5,000 kids. And,
wow, that's huge.
Yeah, it's a major thing, and for a guy like Kevin Timmons, God love him, man, one of my best friends, and the guy is all of his life before he even lost Nick. He's just a giver. I mean, he's so involved in the community. He's so involved. He's raised money for all kinds of things, but to go through the pain that he has gone through and that he still goes through every single day.
Yeah.
To put as much effort into this as he has put in, and now we've expanded the foundation to include new board members, and what we're trying to do is add to this infrastructure. After the first year of making $1 million, netting $1 million, and donated $1 million, that was after all the expenses were paid. Kevin and Dan, who really kind of did this with a group of volunteers over the years, made the bold step of hiring the first ever executive director. So the For the Kids organization has its first full-time employee.
Wow.
And then we've added more board members, brought in some new talent, created some specific committees, and we put a 5-year strategic plan together for what the board was going to do and what the organization could do. And that's incredible. That's what we do, man. And it's you, as you know, and we've talked about.
Yeah.
Mental health is not going away.
It's a problem. It's a serious problem.
It's a major problem. And if we can, hopefully we can save one kid.
Yeah, absolutely. And you will. You'll save more.
We're going to save thousands of them.
I've got that date written down. Monday, October 3rd. Is it sold out? Because that's not that
probably.
Far away.
It's it might be. You can, both these organizations, you can go to kvc.org, or you can go to For the Kids. I think that's .org too, but just look
which,
at
by the way, is FORE,
as in the golf term.
Mm-hmm.
So we completely rebranded it a year ago, and it used to be, and people, we put so much effort into last year, and I think the organization did a great job of finally bringing For the Kids Foundation to the forefront and moving away from, hey, are you playing in Nick and Jake's golf outing this year?
Oh, yeah.
We're playing. You're gonna join. We've got a program called. You can check this out online. We've got a little program called Everyday Champions, and it's a monthly giving program. It's one of those deals where and
that's an extension of this program.
Yep. You go For the Kids. You can go online and you can say, hey, I want to donate $10 a month, $25 a month, $100 a month, whatever, and you just put your checking account or credit card or whatever in there, and it happens every month, and you forget about it.
This is Everyday what?
Everyday Champions. Look for Everyday Champions.
Okay.
And then I think we're working on, we've started to talk to some organizations about becoming what we call foundation partners. Okay. And to be a foundation partner, we basically ask people for, hey, will you, whatever the amount of money that can be, whether it's an individual or it's a corporation, we talk about what's an appropriate amount, and we say, hey, will you pledge that amount annually for 3 years? Whether it's $1,000 or $5,000 or $10,000 or $100,000 if you're a big corporation, but if you're an individual, and all this money is going to go to fund this anxiety and depression clinic. It all goes there. I mean, we're not an organization that takes a bunch of money and spends it on administrative stuff. We have one employee, and the rest of everybody else is volunteers. So
okay.
More to come on that topic.
That is awesome. That is awesome. I definitely want to see if I can't. I'll probably talk to you in private about how I can get more involved with that in some capacity if the opportunity presents itself. All right, let's wrap this up. Be nice. Be nice, everyone. Listen, just be nice. Follow John Barnes on TikTok at Barnesy. That's BARNSEYKC. What's look, we're quickly approaching a 3-hour podcast, so let's try to in your Cliff Notes version way. Yes,
I'll just tell you this about TikTok. I'm not very good at it. All right, so I'm an amateur. I mean, there's a lot. I don't have the fancy camera and all that kind of stuff. I came home.
But you got a message.
I came home from Hot Works one day, and I had heard a song called "Divided States," and it just hit me. And I went, man, this song captures what's in my brain right now, and I'm tired of it. And I posted my first. This before I decided to make the Be Nice hats. I just posted my first. If you look at my TikTok thing, it's mostly about my wife Lori, and how she has impacted my life. And she hates that, by the way. First, I didn't tell her that I posted
Take
these.
that down.
She's like, "Don't ever put me on that TikTok thing again." But I still do, because I love her. But then I went out to my patio and I just recorded a message that said, "Hey, I'm about to be 60 years old. I'm about to be married for 40 years. I'm a blessed person, and I'm just tired of people not being nice. Yeah. And I'm just asking you to be nice, and I'm going to make it a personal mission to be nice. That's it." So. You're a nice guy, Ronnie, man.
Well,
I appreciate you for coming
man.
and let me yak for 3 hours.
No, it's been fun. I know we could have done this longer, and actually I would have liked to have talked about some of that stuff that we were talking about earlier a little bit longer, but maybe we have you back, and maybe we do something where we stream it live. We'll talk about that. But, man, I thank you for being a friend, and like I said earlier in the show, like regardless of how long we go without talking, it's like we pick up right where we left off, and thank you for your friendship to me, and thank you for your empathy with everything that I've been through in the last 2 years, and your passion for other people, because that's ultimately where I see so much success from you. Yeah, you've made a lot of money in your career, but you've been really successful in having passion for people and making those people bigger than yourself. And wanting to do the things to impact those people and lift them up and help them grow. And I have a lot of respect for that. And the fact that we could come here and look, even though we lean both conservative, there are things that we disagree on, but the best part about it is we can still love each other and respect each other. And the thing that I would probably end in closing with this conversation with you, and I said it on the phone, is that if people would actually shut up and get over themselves for just a minute and show love and empathy and respect, if they actually got into a conversation with one another, much like Ben Shapiro did with Bill Maher, you would be surprised at the end of the conversation how much you actually have in common with that person than what you thought you didn't have in common.
Turn your TV off.
Yeah.
Stop listening to the talking heads. Have your own conversation with the person that you think you disagree with, and you're going to find out exactly what you just said.
That's what I did.
That's it, man. That's the trick, the key. That's the key.
I love you, brother. Thank you so much. All right. When we come back, we're going to wrap up episode 15 of the Papa Ron podcast. Hang on. Oh, hang on.
The Papa Ron podcast is brought to you by the award-winning Heartland Waterfowl, airing now on Sportsman's Channel. Check heartlandwaterfowl.com for air times. The all-new Season 9 debuts in July on Sportsman's Channel. And don't forget about the new original series on the Heartland Waterfowl YouTube channel. Check it out and don't doubt the scout. Now, back to the Papa Ron podcast. Here's Ronnie Phillips.
All right. I almost feel like I have to apologize for making this nearly a 3-hour podcast, but man, there was just so much good conversation going on there. And, Barnsey, you can't ever get him to shut up. I'm just kidding. Heartland Waterfowl Season 9 is out on the air right now on Sportsman's Channel. I'd love for you to check it out, airing 5 days a week, 52 weeks a year. And in fact, we are getting ready to head out on the road to film Season 10. A lot of really cool stuff coming your way on the Heartland Waterfowl YouTube channel. We've got a new original series that we launched last year on that channel, and something new called Heartland Waterfowl's Behind the Blind. Now, I know that we titled a podcast episode with Heartland Waterfowl on this episode, or on this podcast called Behind the Blind, but this is an actual feature. This is all new. It's brand new. It's kind of like sitting with us in camp, going and being there with us as we make a cocktail and we go over the footage and discuss the hunt of that day. And then we turn that in like a podcast or like a talk show. We do that right then and there, and we turn it around and we air that for you on our YouTube channel. So check that out. Make sure you subscribe, hit the notifications bell, and don't forget to check your local listings for Season 9 of Heartland Waterfowl that is out right now on Sportsman's Channel and Sportsman's Channel Canada. Once again, thanks to Marathon Media Management, my boy Quentin Verlinick, and then his boy Dakota Thurn for being huge supporters of this podcast and helping me out from time to time with the video side. Also, thanks to Rick Hunter in Tucson, Arizona, Rich Donovan in San Francisco with the production elements of this show. And again, my guest, Mr. Johnny Barnes, thank you for being here. And thank you for listening to the Papa Ron Podcast.
You've been listening to the Papa Ron Podcast. If you enjoyed this show, hit subscribe now and tell your friends on Facebook, Instagram, Snapchat, TikTok, and other social platforms. To participate on the show, leave a message with your comments or questions by calling or texting 816-558-6389. That's 816-558-6389. Until next time, thanks for listening to the Papa Ron Podcast. Papa Ron Podcast.